Hello, hello. Happy Taco Tuesday. Hi, I'm back. Let me make sure. Okay, yeah, we should be good. Hello, hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. Let me see who's here. I saw Psycho in here, Debbie, Kimmy Freak, Asane, Old Days. Okay, all the OGs. Abuelitas, Cree, Ramon. Hi, hi, hi. Yes, 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 yes. Good to see you guys. And Debbie. Hi, hi, hi. Did I say? Oh, hi, Benji. Hi. I know, random live. We're going over Elliot Rodger today, but the reason why I fell upon this and I just had I don't know, I felt like doing it. I was doing some Brian Koberger research because we are going to go deep dive some of those documents this week. And so I don't know, I ran into a whole discussion on this and then I just went down the rabbit hole and I was like, okay, this would be fun to do aside from all the other cases that we cover. So we do have lives later for Kenzie, Nancy Guthrie. I don't know that we'll get to Jeffrey Epstein today, but nonetheless, please turn on your notifications. Thank you for being here. I hope you guys are having a good day. We're just going to jump through a few things and then I'll probably do a part two to this because the manifesto is pretty long and his journal entries. And so there's just a plethora of things we're going to go through. So I'll definitely do a part two of this for tomorrow. I don't know. Some cases just randomly I think about or they fall upon my lap on top of other ones that I'm already working on. So we're just going to get through this one. If you're not familiar with Elliot Rodgers and how he's connected, how I guess it's a factor to Brian Koberger's because like allegedly Brian Koberger like looked up to this guy and he was like looking into him and like to study him and he allegedly was the one who was that in the forum or whatever website it was, I can't remember. He was Papa Roger allegedly, some people believe it was him. So it's disturbing, so you are being warned. It is about firearms and whatnot. If you're not familiar with it, May 23rd, 2014, out of St. Isla Vista, Santa Barbara, 6 victims. He ended up unaliving himself. So today we're just gonna kind of go through the background, watch a few videos, and then we're gonna start the manifesto. We're gonna do part one. We'll do part two tomorrow, and then we'll do some other court paperwork that I want to go through. Let me see what else I have. Okay, maybe we can do the police report as well today. You know, I come with the receipts, the paperwork, always if I can. So hold please. He's a psycho. You guys can see me okay and everything, right? Because StreamYards be acting up. Hey, oldies. He's so weird. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kimmy. Good to see you. So you guys are familiar with it then, yeah? Good. Okay. So I don't have to give you guys much of a background but you are going to hear it anyways in one of these articles. I think it gives us the details for those of us who don't know. And I thought it was very interesting, just because we're dealing with a lot with Nancy Guthrie, like psychologically, literally as a whole, if you know what I mean. You catching on? We're going through a lot of Jeffrey Epstein files too. And I'm just a little surprised still that more people are not talking about it. But we have a live for that later. 3, it's just like not a good place right now. Not a good time right now in the world. And so like I think that's why I was kind of interested because I was researching, like I said, Brian Koberger, and then it just got me into this whole thing of like all these cases, and it was just a moment. So I was like, Elliot Rodger, like there's a lot of controversy behind him, but school shootings still continue to happen. And so yeah, out of Santa Barbara, let me pull up the document we're just gonna get into. And please hit the like button. Like I said, I'm covering Epstein files and you know how they are. You know how they are. Hold. Okay, there we go. I couldn't figure my screen out. I read this. Yeah. Hey, yo, mama. Kobe was inspired by Ted Bundy too. It's a lot lately. Yeah, I know. And this is not like anything. This is dark too, but it just brought me into this whole human being thing. And it's just so I want to cover it. Let's get started. Elliot Rodger. Okay, I have it pulled up. May 23rd, 2014, Elliot Rodger unalived himself and 6 other people, in addition to injuring 13 people near the University of California in Santa Barbara. At the beginning of the rampage, Rodger stabbed 3 people, all UCSB students, to death in his apartment building. He then drove to the Alpha Phi sorority house and banged on the door for several minutes, though no one ever answered. While he was trying to gain entry to the sorority house, the first 911 call of the day was placed, timing the incident at 9:27 p.m. Let me know if you guys can hear the background noise. As he was walking away from the sorority house, Rodger pew-pewed and killed Veronica and Catherine. He also pew-pewed another woman who was with them who survived the attack. Rodger then returned to his car and drove to a deli 2 blocks away, where he also did the same thing to Christopher Martinez. As he drove away, he continued to shoot rounds from his car. He also did at a police officer on foot who did it back. While continuing his driving rampage, Rodger hit a bicyclist and then fired more at pedestrians. He continued to drive and fire at the pedestrians and police officers until he hit another bicyclist, as well as several cars. Rodger stopped his car, and when police removed him from the car, he had died of self-inflicted wound to the head. The entire timeline of events took place in less than 20 minutes. So that was also what it's not close to 8 minutes of Bryan Kohberger, but 20 minutes, I mean, kind of a long time, but not really. And, I know there's a lot of controversy, like his family, and I'm not here to victim blame, and do none of that, but it's questionable, the relationship, I think. And I don't know if you guys caught on to that. It's been too long. Maybe you don't know that much about the case, but there's definitely something very off about that relationship. And as I've watched the interviews, I'm just like, it gives me the ick. Like, we've talked about this before. Are people born evil, or are they a product of their environment? I think I've asked you guys that on a few different cases that we've covered. And what is it? Because, they claim that he had this, he had autism, some form of it. And same with Bryan Kohberger. And then they said he's schizophrenic. Then he says he has anxiety, depression, but people that have these things and diagnosis, not all of them are murderers. So it's a complex subject. I get it. But I'm curious and I'm open-minded to hear people's opinions about that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of people don't like to talk about uncomfortable stuff, but I do. And so I think that's why we're all here. Yeah. Let's continue the article. Before he left for the sorority house, Rodger uploaded a video to YouTube entitled Elliot Rodger's Retribution, in which he outlined his planned spree. He emailed the video in addition to his manifesto, which he titled My Twisted World, to his friends and family, including his therapist. Soon after the spree, the videos in the manifesto became available online. In the video and in the manifesto, his motivation for doing this appears to be a sense of anger and frustration over his inability to find a girlfriend, in addition to his hatred of women, interracial relationships, and racial minorities. So that's another, big topic in this case is the incel. And then Bryan Kohberger, was he an incel? Is he an incel? There was a whole lot of controversy with that case and Bryan Kohberger. And do you believe that Bryan was really, trying to be or act out what Elliot Rodger did? I used to believe we're all born innocent, but I am not sure now. What's crazy, Isla Vista was a huge hangout, friends. Oh, really? I've watched some of them. Thank you, Ramon. Good to see you. He was inspired by Ted Bundy. That's another one that's good to cover, even though I haven't covered it here, but Ted Bundy is a whole nother thing as well. Rodger himself actually was a product of an interracial relationship, as his mother is Malaysian. One of the 6 victims of the spree, all of them belonged to at least one of the groups that Rodger heavily criticized, women and racial minorities. Many of the surviving victims also belonged to such groups. In preparation for the attack, Rodger had literally purchased 3 guns. Investigators have pointed out that he likely had no issue passing any background test to purchase them, as there was nothing in the history that would have raised any red flags. Rodger was raised in the affluent suburbs of LA, California. By the time he was 8 years old, he was regularly seeing therapists. This also reminded me of the Nick Reiner case, so which was rather recent. He stabbed his parents to death, and in the Koberger case, that was done by stabbing as well. But Elliot also used firearm, and same with which is similar to the Jodi Arias case, which we are also covering. A couple of the older cases I like to mix in with the current stuff. Um, but Jodi Arias did the same thing. She used a knife and then she used a firearm. So very different cases, similar to some extent. According to Rodger's journals, he was increasingly bullied in high school. When he was 18, Rodger began to reject his psychiatric treatment he was receiving, and he became more isolated and avoided friendships. 3 weeks before his spree, Rodger's parents became concerned after watching his YouTube videos and contacted the police, reporting that Rodger had planned an attack and weapons to assist him. Police officers went to Rodger's apartment and interviewed him, though they did not do a search for the weapons and did not arrest Rodger after he told them it was a misunderstanding. In response to the unalivings, there was a social media frenzy. On May 24th, the Twitter hashtag Yes to All Women was created to give women an open forum to discuss their experiences with misogyny as a response of those who do not believe that Rodger's attack was motivated by his hatred of women. Since its creation, Twitters have used the tweets. I have to sneeze. Excuse me, I had to sneeze really bad. I will not continue. So, does he hate women, and is that why he did this, or is it everything on top of all the mental health issues, etc., that you think he was experiencing? Um, Very interesting. Oh, sorry. Let me pull up the next. There's just two articles that I kind of wanted to um read, and then we can go to the manifesto, which, like I said, we probably won't get through today because it's really, really long, but we can do half of it today and then the other half tomorrow. Let me pull up the next document. Chilling reports details how Elliot Rodger executed this murderous rampage. He thought he was also better than everyone else. Yeah, I was reading. I thought at first he came from a wealthy family and a wealthy background, but I thought I also saw that it wasn't true. And so, but that he still thought he was all that. I don't know which is true. Did he come from a wealthy background or not? I guess we'll find out. Um, Sheriff's Office report reveals plan was months in the making in 2014. Left 6 people dead, not including Rodger, and 14 people wounded. Wow. After stabbing his two housemates, and another man to death, Elliot Rodger began the second part of his rampage with a triple vanilla latte from Starbucks. Then, from behind the wheel of his black BMW coupe, he uploaded his final video to YouTube, titled Retribution. A detailed report into Rodger's attack in Isla Vista, California on May 23rd, 2014 was released on Thursday by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. The report revealed in heartbreaking detail the execution of Rodger's plan months in the making to exact revenge on a world he believed had deeply wronged him. The men he unalived at his apartment were Wei-Hin Wang, Chang Yuing, George Chen, 2020 and 19. Less than 2 hours after purchasing his latte at around 9:15 p.m., Rodger arrived at Alpha sorority house. Rachel, who lived there, heard him pounding on the door for several minutes. No one answered, but after the pounding stopped, Glikes heard 6 to 7 gunshots, a female scream, followed by 3 additional gunshots. Vanessa, another resident, heard this as she was getting dressed, according to the report, but thought at first they were firecrackers. Linda, the sorority's house mother, gathered some of the other residents in a room to take shelter. Rodger had returned to his car. Through its open window, he fired at Veronica, Catherine, and Bianca as they walked past the western wall of the sorority house. Then, making what one witness described as an aggressive turn from 𝗠𝗲𝗶𝗽𝗆 del Norte onto Segovia, Rodger drove away. Oh, so the street names. Decock survived, Copper and Wise did not. So Bianca survived, Catherine survived, and Veronica did not. The first 911 call came into the Santa Barbara County Dispatch Center at 9:27 p.m. from a man named Spencer. The sheriff's office broadcast a gunshots heard less than 30 seconds later. Deputies, several of whom had heard them before running towards the house, converged on the scene. Rodger was still driving. He made a 3-point turn in a driveway to 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 Road. As he passed a coffee shop on 𝗠𝗲𝗆, he fired onto one round into it. It was closed at the time. A group of friends was standing on the corner outside the Ivy Deli Mart when they heard a loud noise, which the report says was likely Rodger's firearm into the coffee shop. One of them suggested they go inside the deli, so they filed inside. Christopher Michaels turned to look at Rodger's car from the doorway of the store. He was struck in the chest as Rodger fired numerous into the store. Michael fell to the floor inside the deli mart where he died. Rodger continued to drive, shooting from the car window near the junction of Del Norte and Madrid Road. He swerved to hit a man, Jin, who was crossing the road. The car struck Jin with such force, according to the report, that his body flipped as he was thrown into the air. Miraculously, Jin's only injury was a small bruise on his left calf. Oh, wow. I didn't know that part. Rodger continued, I'm glad he was okay. Rodger continued to shoot at people, hitting and wounding several of them, as well as knocking several other people with his car. At 9:35 p.m., Rodger crashed heavily into a parked car. Officers rushed to it. In the driver's seat, they found Rodger, his black pistol loaded and cocked next to his hip. He was dead from a wound to the head. My gosh, I forget how dark. Sorry, I had like something stuck in my throat. Latte. Ugh, I love me latte. He was always drinking his latte. Really? Yeah, wasn't his dad a director for Hunger Games? That's what I read somewhere too. Oh yeah, his dad worked in movies. I saw Sane just said that. His narcissism made him feel like he was better than everyone. So I think he read into every interaction he had. What do you guys think? And we're not here to judge anyone really, but like, what do you guys think about the whole relationship with his parents? Because, like he says that he was abused and stuff. I know we're going to cover that, but, I've watched a couple of the interviews with his dad, and his dad's like, we knew he was sick, of course, but, they're like, we didn't see it coming, but I feel like, I don't know. Let's continue. This whole attack had taken around 8 minutes, according to the report, which estimates that the rounds were fired. By the end, 14 people had been wounded, either by gunshot or struck by the car. 6 were dead, not including Rodger. More than 500 live rounds and another firearm and 2 knives were discovered in the car by the police. One of the people who was shot, Bailey Maples, recalled that Rodger had a creepy laugh, a laugh that would become unpleasantly similar to investigators and the press in the following days as his online world began to be revealed. A Guardian investigation into Rodger's online life at the time of the attack found, like the sheriff's report, evidence of hatred and premeditation. Rodger had a number of threatening YouTube videos and was called a member of the insidious online community on a message board site called PUA Hate. His lengthy autobiography manifesto titled My Twisted World has been emailed to several people, including his father, earlier that day. His father, Peter Rodger, a film executive, told investigators the document freaked him out. In Rodger's apartment, along with several more knives, including a 10-inch zombie fixed blade and a machete, and a printout of his manifesto, was a diary. The final handwritten entry reads, "This is it. In the hour I will have my revenge on this cruel world. I hate you all. Die." In this introduction to his report, Sheriff Bill Brown said, quote unquote, sadly, terrible crimes like this occur far too frequently. Brown also wrote that in the aftermath of such tragedies, the question always asked, what can be done to save the lives of by preventing similar crimes in the future? And that's a very good question. In California, we have some of the strongest GUN control laws in the nation, yet in this case, the suspect was still able to legally purchase and possess 3 of them and and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Many suspects in the mass murder incident suffer from mental illness that is untreated or undertreated. Yet in the instance, the suspect was receiving treatment and had been since childhood. And this opens up a lot of other topics, right? Like mental illness, and then, what that's like, how it's available, how it's not available. It's expensive. Some people do experience it, some people try to get treated for it. It's a thing that you always have to deal with forever. So that could lead into a plethora of conversations. But um, he was getting help. And what made him like this? Like, was it really that he was bullied and stuff, or was it something else that maybe when he was like a child or younger, his home life, they don't know how these traits or behaviors develop exactly. And that's what interests me. He would sit there and watch them fuming in hate. Thing is, there's loopless holes around the background checks. Yeah, you know what, Jay? I was just gonna say that too. Like, I was gonna say, legally or not, you can get them. People have, there's ways. He's a narcissist. I do believe he is a narcissist. His idea of being bullied and a girl sitting in the parking kissing drove him crazy. That blows my mind. So let's talk about that. Like, he just never got laid. And so he said he hated the world because of it and hated women because they never wanted him and he never felt like wanted. And then he was heavily bullied though, right? Um, which doesn't make anything right, but doesn't that he did. But bullying can be a big deal, and it's a topic that definitely needs more awareness as well, as there's different forms of it, and we've all experienced it or have been involved in it. So whether you want to admit it or not. Don't get me started, all right? I don't know how narcissists are formed, but they are souls. But how is that? Like I said earlier, he had money or his dad did. Couldn't he have just hired an escort? Jay, I know he got into corn like really young, and I do think that does something to the brain. I also wonder, like, I know he was ABUSED. Was that schmexually though? Because I feel like that could that have played a role in all of this? Like, I'm just deep diving with you guys into this case. It's not like I'm a profesh yet, but we will be after the deep dives. But in this case will always continue to matter, just like many others that involve abuse and pew pew cases and mental health and society. Okay? That about sums it up. His thought of bullying, I think, is different than the norm. Yeah, you could buy escorts. Oh, I was gonna say with the corn, he could have got, yeah, something offline. I don't know, but I don't know. Heavily bullying someone is an MK mechanism. They did the same to the yes, pizza. Thank you for acknowledging that. It's true. Um, I think it's heavy on the psyche, if you ask me, and also with SA. And so I wonder. Let's finish this article and then we'll get into the manifesto because I know he talks about a lot in there. Many suspects in mass murder incidents suffer from mental illness that is untreated or undertreated, and this is very true. And it's hard to get mental health help. And I think that's just something also that needs to be acknowledged and talked about more. And doesn't help that we live in a world full of pedophiles and baby eaters. And that, health insurance is expensive and we pay taxes for no reason, apparently. And all of these powerful people are keeping our money and doing what they want with it. And they don't give a shit about the people. I mean, don't get mad just because I'm telling you the truth. You don't unsubscribe because that's the actual truth. Most people cannot afford health insurance, and if you can, mental health coverage is like a whole nother thing, right? You have to get referred, and then there's this and that, and then you might be with an insurance that, doesn't believe in that, if you know what I mean. And so, you have to jump through a million hoops to even get to mental help. Like, it's absolutely exhausting, and I'm exhausted just thinking of it because I have been there before. And so I do speak from experience, and I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a true crime junkie, but I do have some experience with the shit that I talk about and give my opinion about. So I just wanted to make that clear. Seems like paranoia. I saw a couple hugging, and they were hugging that I don't have a girlfriend. I know. He even hated his best friend because girls liked him. So then he hated women, and that's why he did all of this. But he didn't kill just women, he killed males too. And it's overkill. Like, he did with a knife, just like Jodi Arias, and then with firearm. It's absolutely insane. Thank you, Jay. That's brave of you to speak on Melly. I know it's weird. It makes people uncomfortable. I can tell too. But also, it's leading me back to the Jeffrey Epstein files and all that. But anyways, I don't want to jump about that. We can have a hangout later and talk about it. But I actually typed rubbing. Oh, he had rage towards men because they could get girls. Because girls like those guys. Agreed, mental health is so unrelated and way harder to receive than it should be. It is. It's like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. He's making the girls afraid of him. He had no game. Yeah, I know. He was very awkward. Let's move on to the video that he did before all of this went down, or at the time of, let me pull it up. Trigger warning, and this is for educational purposes. Like I said, we're just talking about mental health, things of the world, because I know YouTube's probably going to be on my ass for it. Okay, yeah.
The man who killed 6 college students in Santa Barbara, California, did not hide his hatred of women. His angry threats were posted online for all the world to see. So why wasn't he stopped? Ben Tracy's been looking into that.
Well, this is my last video.
Elliot Rodger's internet videos became darker in February. Police did not become aware of them until alerted by his family.
Law enforcement does not routinely monitor social media unless there's some authorized law enforcement purpose.
Sean Henry is a former executive assistant director of the FBI and president of cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike.
What they've got to do is actually look for some indication that somebody has committed a crime, is going to commit a crime. They're launching a particular threat against an individual or a group of individuals, in which case law enforcement can take specific actions.
The earlier videos were angry but vague. His YouTube message Friday was specific.
I'll take to the streets of Isla Vista and slay every single person I see there.
YouTube prohibits video that threatens serious acts of violence or promotes hatred against individuals or groups.
So they ended up taking his videos down, but we still have them, so I'm a little confused. At least on his
But he
page.
wants to put online.
If I can't have you, girls, I will destroy you.
Rodger's rants against women inspired more than 1.5 million Twitter users to post messages against sexism using the hashtag #YesAllWomen. They include, because I can't walk my dog in my own neighborhood without getting catcalled by grown men, because I have to walk around with a keyblade in my hand to feel safe. The #YesAllWomen hashtag has now spread all around the world. You're seeing women in Pakistan and Indonesia tweeting about their experiences with harassment and fear. And Nora, we should mention some men are using.
They took his video. Yeah, they do, but we're gonna play some of them right now. I know, before we get into the manifesto. This one, and they're just kind of random. They're in no specific order. This is a balcony vlog where he's reminiscent about childhood, and then I'll show you guys the one in the car. There's a plethora of them, and they're all fairly disturbing.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. Today it's April 7th, 2014. I'm just admiring the view from my father's house right now. And boy, what a lovely day it is. Not a cloud in the sky. I can hear some kids playing down there. When I hear those sounds, it reminds me of the days of my childhood. Those were the best times of my life. I wish I could be a kid again. Those were the happy years.
What the hell?
And I could just live my life without realizing how cruel the world really is. Life is so much fairer when you're a kid. I mean, when you're a kid, you don't have to worry about, things like being attractive or how many girls like you. No one has unfair advantages. And then when you hit puberty, your life either becomes heaven on earth or a living hell. It all depends on how many girls like you, or if girls like you at all. My life turned into a living hell. No girls liked me. And I hate them all for it.
What? You guys just reminded me of I believed Austin says I believe he lived more with his mom than his dad. Yes, they're in the relationship. We're gonna watch a documentary on it. It's really long, not today, obviously. That would probably be part 4. Um there was a lot going on. There's a lot when you really go deep into his life, there was a lot going on with his parents as well too. So um respectfully. Let me play another video and then we'll get into the manifesto. This one's a little bit longer. This one's 5 minutes. And this one is life is unfair because girls don't want me. So it takes a minute to load. Let me go back to, I had another article. I wanted to read someone's review about his manifesto. Okay, but the video's ready. So let me make sure it's going to play because they're very hard to get a hold of, these videos. And so sometimes they don't work. Okay, here's the one where he's in the car. Yeah, life is so unfair because girls don't want me. Respect. What's the doc called? I'll have to pull it up in a second. I'll let you know, but it's really, really long. It's like a couple hours long, but I was thinking we would go through it because we're going to deep dive everything else. So I was thinking we might as well, and it was done really well. I'm really impressed by the guy. Can't remember his name. Feels like he was exposed to the island with his movie dad. Yeah, so his dad is a film director. Is he in the Epstein files? Probably not. I'm paranoid now. I'm like, everyone is the DoorDash guy in the Epstein file? I'm just kidding. Too soon. Yeah, it was. Wait. Okay, yeah, there is no prominent figures. He's definitely not, so that's good. What did he direct exactly? Or it was something Hunger Games, right? Let's look. I'm curious. Okay. Second unit director on Hunger Games. He also directed numerous commercials and won awards for Houston and Chicago International Film Festivals. OMG, oh my God, 2009 documentary, Hunger Games 2012, worked as second unit director, also known for his photography work. I wonder what that's about. British filmmaker, photographer, and commercial director. He's also known for that documentary. Okay. I want to see what that's about. Hunger Games is good too. He's done campaigns in over 63 countries for banks, Mercedes, Save the Children Fund. Interesting. Okay. All right, let's move on. Next video. And why do other incels find him like a king? Yeah, I know. That's why we're talking about it, because I came across him with Brian Koberger. Which, like I said, we're going to continue to deep dive the paperwork. I haven't gone through all of it, and I've been fiending for reading documents. I know, weird. Incels are like any movement in the US. There's a violent subculture alongside the rest of the movement. Okay, let's watch another video, and then I'll read the review that someone did on his manifesto. Hold, please.
Elliot Rodger here.
Oh, great. Hold, please. Oh, patience is a virtue. Hold, please. It's good.
I'm just sitting in my car right now after watching that beautiful sunset descend beyond that hill up there. Enjoying a nice vanilla latte. Oh yeah, that's nice. Makes me feel all pumped up. I've been doing a lot of thinking about how sad and unfair my life has been. All because girls haven't been attracted to me. I've been going through college for 2.5 years now. And in those 2.5 years, I've had to rot in bleak and sad loneliness, while other guys get to enjoy all the pleasures of, sex and socializing and partying. I've never had a taste of that because no girls give me a chance. No girl at my college has ever expressed any interest in me. I mean, you give a chance to all these stupid, obnoxious guys that I see you walking with, but you don't give a chance to me. Why not? I'm such a magnificent guy. I'm beautiful. You can't deny that. I've traveled all over the world. I have so much to talk about. I'm civilized, intelligent, sophisticated. I have a sense of style. And yet you girls don't see it. And every single day, I have to be insulted by the sight of all these lesser men walking around with beautiful girls. I see so many couples where the guy is just so unworthy of having a beautiful girlfriend like that. And yet, they're together. He has her love. And I've never had any of that love and affection from girls. Why do you girls give those guys a chance, but not me? I deserve it more. It's not fair. Every single day I have to be insulted by the sight of guys enjoying girls while I'm all alone. Even watching that sunset up there is a bittersweet experience because while I love the peaceful beauty of it, I can't help but think of all the other guys who get to enjoy that same sunset with a beautiful girlfriend at their side while I'm sitting here all alone in my car. There's no beautiful girl in that passenger seat to enjoy it with me.
What the?
Because you girls have something against me. I don't know what it is. Whenever I drive through this college town called Isla Vista, which is just right next to UCSB, I see so many hot, beautiful blonde girls walking with absolute stupid, obnoxious looking douchebags. And I just can't help but think how wrong that is. Those beautiful blonde girls should be walking with me, not those brutes. I deserve them more. Why do those horrible men get to experience these?
Okay, you know how Brian Koberger's like allegedly, he looked up to this guy. I feel like could this have been why maybe he killed the Idaho 4? Maybe he felt this way towards the females. It's creepy. This is really, really wild.
Love and affection of such beautiful, heavenly girls, while I've had to rot in loneliness all my life. It's not
Wow.
fair. It's such an injustice. I don't understand you girls. It's like your sexual attraction is flawed. It's perverted. You're attracted to the wrong kind of guy. You should be attracted to guys like me. Beautiful, magnificent guys.
What? That's crazy.
This world, it's so twisted. It's so cruel. And you girls make it cruel. You girls have starved me of sex and enjoyment and pleasure for my entire youth. You've taken 8 years away from my life. 8 years I'll never get back. Do you know how much misery you've caused me? I'm such a nice guy. Why won't you give me a chance?
Wait, what? That is really, really whoa. I had not watched that in its entirety. I don't think I've seen like bits and pieces. Okay, this is crazy. Before I say anything, I don't know, before we move on, you know how I said like was his dad wealthy? He must have been back in the day, question mark, question mark, question mark, because now it says that he's not. Now it says that he's struggling with income as of 2014. He asked the court for some leniency in like debt. His reported income is $500,000. I believe is what Google. To think if he wasn't so mentally disturbed and if he was normal healthy, I don't think he would. It's reminding me of something, and I'll have to think of exactly what in my once I can remember what I was going to say earlier. Exactly what I was thinking about BK. Yeah. Yeah, when he called himself Papa Roger. It was in was it what forum was it? I don't remember what it was. Was it 4chan? because Ellie investigated that Papa Rogers account. So was it on 4chan? I can't remember. Let me look if I have it. Actually, I don't think it was. I think it was something else. But then they said that there was no link, but I believe there was. Bryan Kohberger was Papa Roger. Oh, it was a Facebook account? Why was I thinking 4chan? 4chan's been involved in a lot of the older cases I'm looking into. Oh, was it 500? No, 500 in net total, Alicia. He's not getting 500,000 a year. That's his like overall net worth according to Google. I don't know if that's true. Just take that with a grain of salt. Could be a lie. Remember, Google is in the Epstein files as well. It was in the documentary as well. I remember that. Let me see. One Night in Idaho, The College Murders on Prime covers the case. Okay. And I guess that's where was Papa Roger. Yeah, one of the surprising details covered in the 3rd episode is the possibility that Kohberger joined a true crime Facebook group. Oh, it was Facebook? Just discussing the case. Wow, I for sure thought it was something else. A user named Papa Rogers joined a few weeks after the crime and gained attention for types of questions he would ask about the case. Yeah, I remember that. They noted that the questions Papa Roger asked were similar to the type of questions Kohberger had put in the questionnaire. I think we covered that questionnaire. I have a Bryan Kohberger playlist if you guys are interested, which you should be, and I would appreciate if you go replay. Papa Roger also asked a specific question about the knife sheath, a detail not made public at the time of the post that raised eyebrows for Cameron and Smith. Papa Roger also tried to deflect interest from the police's search for a white Hyundai Elantra, the type of car that Kohberger drove. These people cannot absolutely verify that Kohberger was Papa Roger in the group, but in their opinion, it is highly likely given the questions and the fact that shortly after the arrest, the account disappeared. An even stranger detail was that Papa Roger's profile picture looked like a photo of Kohberger with older age and military uniform added to it. If you guys haven't seen the photos, I'm going to try to get them. I won't show them in this live, maybe tomorrow. But his selfie photos, Elliot Rodger, his selfie photos were just as awkward as Bryan Kohberger's. Hey, Gala, I haven't heard anything about this case since it happened. It was shocking. I know. Isn't that weird? I thought about it last night. Thought it was Instagram. People calling him Papa Roger. Yeah. Ashley Banfield did a 2-minute, a 5-minute clip. He interviewed, was Bryan Kohberger inspired by the Incel, Elliot Rodger. Let's watch that. And then I want to still read the review. Oh, wait, we're going to read the police report. Then we'll read we'll start the manifesto. And then I have a ton more videos too. And those videos are creepy, but I might upload them to just as videos if you guys want to use them or watch them without the commentary. I kind of like to do that. Let's watch this. This is from 7 months ago.
Observations about Kohberger, and Josh is kind enough to join me now. Wow. First of all, I can't thank you enough for this interview because I, along with so many others, have been trying to get inside the head of Bryan Kohberger, and it seems like a fool's errand. It seems impossible. So anyone who may have known him or anything about him is like a gold mine, Josh. First and foremost, what was he like? What was the Bryan Kohberger you knew like?
Yeah, so let me clear something up real quick. I don't remember a single class we had together except biology. What I said was that we had, as a collective group of students, took these classes not together. I only remember biology courses. However, as a student, he was very astute, very diligent, and he was a pleasure to work with.
So when you say he was a pleasure to work with, Was he a pleasure to work with because you're a man? Because all of the reports say if you were female, he wanted nothing to do with you.
Yeah, I could say that would be accurate just because during class and roaming around DeSales University, I never saw him really talk to anybody. In the group project, he communicated with me via text and email, and we worked diligently on this project, him and I together with two others who really didn't do much in the project. But when it was time to communicate, he was easy to communicate and text and email and make sure the project and the portions that needed to be done were done. But in terms of his interactions with other students, the most telling thing I can say is he really kept to himself. I remember vividly many times watching him in the Starbucks in one of the buildings, and he would sit there with his computer and his headphones in and keep to himself almost all the time. In class, he would answer questions from the professor, but you never really saw him engage or interact with really anybody. Even myself in our group, we didn't have many conversations because he would shut down any kind of small talk.
So Josh, you know, you can remember somebody for no particular reason, and you can remember someone because of something like this, and suddenly you look at your memories through a different prism. When you look back at the man you see on your screen right now, when you look back at your time with him, do you see any red flags? Do you see anything that now stands out, now makes perfect sense?
No, I can't say that I do. I mean, he was like a chameleon. I mean, for everything that's came out, some of the most heinous people look the most normal. And I'm not saying Brian Kohberger looks normal whatsoever, but he definitely, in my aspect, doesn't raise any red flags up until this point and the past few years. But I did notice, you know, telling things that, like how you kind of said, this prism that I'm looking through in my past, and he really kept to himself. Something interesting, he always wore long sleeves, no matter if it was hot or not. And I just remember making that distinction because that was something odd that I noticed about someone, although it bears no weight and no meaning, and that he kept to himself almost all the time. And he was a commuter student, so he didn't spend much time on campus. He came to class and he left.
If you look back now, do you recognize anything in the patterns of the killings that he has now confessed to? Even though I understand, Josh, we don't have all the details, we have a fairly good idea of what he did to carry out these heinous acts. But do you recognize anything in the patterns of what he did at 1122 King Road as compared to the things that you all were being taught, the things you were learning about other terrible killers?
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it earlier with Elliot Rodgers, and something I'd said in a prior interview with God knows who was that in these classes, we go over many times how in the digital age, these people will try to relive that fantasy. Digital age, physical age, doesn't matter, but they're oftentimes going to go back to that crime scene. And one way to go back to the crime scene is to go to a pseudonym like Papa Rogers and enter a community and relive that high. That is something we went over in depth, and kind of, if it does come out ever that he is Papa Rogers, would say that's pretty shocking just because that's very silly to involve yourself back into the crime and leave a digital footprint instead of, being physically there. But we also know that he had went back in that morning, so he might have done both.
Do you think, Josh, that Brian Kohberger is Papa Roger who showed up in those crime discussion groups after the murders?
Until someone else stands up and says that it was them, absolutely. I don't see any reason.
I do too. I do think he was, well, maybe we'll go over those two in the live. I do think he was Papa Roger. So was Elliot Rodger mentally unwell and angry? Somebody said he doesn't match the definition of incel. He's like the king of incels from what I've heard, but again, I don't know. I'm not a professional. And incels. Let me look that up. Oh, do you believe that he was mentally unwell and an incel and angry and maybe has been abused and all of that just made him lose his shit and he snapped? Or do you believe that he is just a narcissist, angry, jealous, horrible human who committed these horrible? I guess what I'm asking is, do you think mental health plays a role? I guess to some extent, but do you believe that truly? The 5 core elements of incel ideology. The foundation: men's victimhood and oppression. Incels believe that rather than women, it is men who are truly oppressed. They believe women actually control men and lie about gender inequality, claiming that family court systems are biased in favor of women. Women make false rape allegations. SCX violence and domestic violence are gender neutral problems. I don't really like that. I don't know if that's a reliable source. Involuntary celibate refers to the members of an online subculture mainly composed of heterosexual men. These individuals find it difficult or impossible to have a romantic or SEX partner, and they express extreme anger and resentment towards women as they hold them accountable for their inceldom. His dad tried to bring him to Las Vegas. I don't know if you guys remember some of the details of this case, but we'll go through all of it. We're deep diving it. But his dad like took him to Las Vegas one time to try to get like laid, and respectfully, and it like didn't work out. But that rubbed me the wrong way too with the dad. I don't know.
Reason to say that it wasn't him. The student.
Oh, wait, I was saying, we were going over the characteristics of an incel. There's a lot. There's actually this document that I'm looking at by National Library of Medicine, which is a reliable scholarly source. It talks about it with like statistics and stuff. So we might do this on another live. According to risk assessment theory and predicted violent behavior, to assess the likelihood that an individual will engage in aggressive or harmful actions, it is important to address different factors: mental health, personality characteristics, social and relational stressors are some of the most important aspects to consider in identifying and managing potential risks to public safety and individual well-being.
The name Papa Rogers in connection with Elliot Rodger makes a lot of sense, especially if he did idolize him as, the king of the incel community and wanted to do it, even better, or pay homage to his name and online.
Wait, why does it take them off the screen?
In the past. And I haven't seen anything online or anywhere that says that he isn't, or definitively that he is. So it's all speculative, of course, right now, but it would not surprise me in the slightest if, to relive that high, he entered that community just to feel everything that he felt that night again.
Pretty uncanny, the profile picture and the icon.
Yeah, Kimmy, that's what it brings up too. Isn't Rob Reiner's Nick Reiner an incel and weird and mental health and drug addict and an incel? Yeah, allegedly. Hey, Jen, he was entitled and socially awkward and felt entitled for sure. Incel is involuntary. So yes. But he does give off like Brian Koberger vibes too,
Picture in the Papa Rogers, right? I mean, when I first saw it, I thought, well, that's a dead ringer right there, and what a stupid mistake. But then again, Brian Koberger made a lot of stupid mistakes if he thought he was so smart at committing the perfect crime. One last quick question for you, Josh. As a student of criminology, do you think you'll ever reach out to Brian Koberger to try to ask him questions or learn more about why he did what he did?
Would I?
Yeah.
No, that's not my place. I mean, you leave that to Dr. Ramsland and the professionals. I run a swim school now. I have nothing to do with criminal justice anymore. I'm very happy where I'm at. Although if given the opportunity to speak to him and just ask him why, I think anybody would take that opportunity. So I guess I would say yes on that. And there better be other people in the room because, I feel for the victims and their families, and what he did, what he admitted to, now we can finally say, is atrocious and awful. And yeah, everybody wants to ask him why, so I can't deny that I would ask him if given the opportunity, but we'll leave that to the professionals.
I said it was one last question. I lied. I have one more, and I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you anyway. Josh, he gave a plea. He confessed. There was no trial. There will be no death penalty. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I wrote a paper about the death penalty in college. I'm for the death penalty, an eye for an eye. He took 4 lives and got to keep his. I think that's the most unjust, unfair thing. And as America, we should be able to speak out about these things and make sure that people like this, you know, get their just desserts. And he definitely is living a cushy life for the rest of his life. I'm a prior corrections officer. Jail is not that hard. You're away from your family. You have tablets. You have TVs. You have activities. You have games. You have people that literally hand you food. He is going to live the rest of his life in infamy. And I think that that's an injustice to all the victims, all their families, no matter how they personally feel, because I know some of the families felt different. I am a proponent for an eye, especially when it's 4.
Josh Ferraro, can't thank you enough for this time.
That was a classmate, which I thought was an interesting video. Before we move on to the manifesto and a few more of the clips, let's go through the police report real quick. This was not police report from that crime. This is a different one, which I kind of wanted to see what it was about. 7/21/2013. When did I say the May 23rd, 2014. Santa Barbara County Sheriff's unknown suspects drags a victim out of a front yard towards the driveway, kicking and punching him. While the victim was being battered, one of the suspects called him an FAGGOT. The victim sustained several abrasions and contusions due to the attack. This is a violation of hate crime. Had you guys heard of this before? I had never heard about this. Day before my birthday. No, he made a plea. You're talking about Brian Koberger. Yeah, I know that plea deal. That was crazy. We were all waiting for the trial, remember? Oh boy, I can never forget that. Let me look up something really quick before we continue. Yeah, there was a prior incident in months leading up to the attack that Rodger was involved in a fight at a party where he tried to push a woman off the ledge. This resulted in him being beaten up and broke his ankle, with witnesses noting his aggressive behavior, according to Wikipedia. Following the fight, sheriff's deputies visited him in the hospital, but the case was closed without charges. And then on May 23rd, 2014 is when that spree happened. Let's read this. I have not read this police report. Continuations, none. Evidence, several digital photographs. Okay. Narrative. So like basically like a year before May 23rd or so. On 7/21/2013, Corporal Pierce and I were dispatched to 𝗮𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Cottage Hospital for report of battery that occurred on 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Drive the night prior. Upon our arrival, I contacted Elliot Rodger in the lobby of the emergency room. Upon speaking with Rodger, he informed me of the following. On July 20th, 2013, he was at a party which was later determined to be at 6644 when he got into a verbal altercation with 4 male subjects. He said during the altercation, he called one of the subjects ugly prior to being pushed off a 10-foot high ledge. He said he fell off the ledge onto the sidewalk and then stumbled his way into the front yard. Wait, what? 4? So it was him against 4. He said when he walked into the front yard, he found a chair and sat down. He said several minutes later, approximately 10 male subjects approached him and said, "Get the F out of here." He said the subjects then grabbed him and dragged him towards the driveway, kicking him and punching him. He said while the students were attacking him, one of them called him an FAGGOT. He said he was able to punch one of the subjects before they stopped attacking him. He said he then walked back to his apartment. I asked Rodger if he had gone out in Isla Vista by himself, and he said yes. I asked Rodger how much alcohol he had been drinking when the altercation began, and he said, "I drank 2 beers." I asked Rodger why he had been attacked and been called that word, and he said, "I don't know why." I asked Rodger why he didn't call law enforcement after he was assaulted, and he says, "I didn't know who to call." 911, I think, is the easiest phone number to remember. Or no? Okay, just let me know if you know that or if you have to write it down. I asked Rodger if he could describe any of the subjects who attacked him, and he informed me of the following. The first suspect was described as an Asian male, approximately 18 to 22 years old, average build with black hair, wearing blue jeans and dark blue sweatshirt. The second subject was described as a Hispanic male, same age, 18 to 22, 6'2", with skinny build, short black hair, and unknown clothing description. During my contact with Rodger, he appeared to not be forthcoming with me. He appeared timid and shy and would not go into great detail about what had occurred. I advised Rodger that when he was released from the hospital to contact me at the Isla Vista Foot Patrol office and bring me a copy of his medical paperwork. Rodger stated he would contact me and provide me with a copy. At this time, I have not heard back from Rodger. I spoke with Rodger's father, Peter Rodger, who stated he had spoken to the tenants who live in the upstairs apartment of Redacted. He said the tenants were cooperative and polite and stated that they were not at the residence at the time of the assault. I observed Rodger had the injuries. He had Redacted on both his forearms and elbows. He had Redacted on his knuckles where he admitted to punching his attackers. He had lesions on his forearms and elbow, lesions or abrasions, one of them. Abrasions on both his arms and ankles. Sorry, they crossed it out. He had abrasions on his knuckles where he admitted to punching the attackers. I observed that his left eye was swollen and there were Redacted on the left side of his face. Why did they redact that? There was also Redacted on his back, and left ankle was Redacted and had Redacted to it. There was also bruises on his back. And his left ankle was broken, right? That's what we read in the previous article. Wait, isn't that what we read before? Yeah, breaking his ankle. Whoa. I took several digital photographs of Rodger's injuries and booked them into the forensics as evidence. This is like... No, Brian Koberger happened in Idaho. Elliot Rodger is out of California. I take it he can't handle rejection by any woman, and he can't handle that at all. Or maybe the males are protecting the girls. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Paranoia, did he have schizoaffective? I was thinking he had it possibly. I was reading that he could have schizoaffective, but a lot of it was like depression, anxiety, I don't remember schizo being one of them. It was Asperger's syndrome. Oh, and he was diagnosed with PDD, which is pervasive developmental disorder, which is basically a condition on the autism spectrum. And mental health struggles. He suffered from severe anxiety, depression, and longstanding social difficulties for which he had received therapy and took medication, including Xanax, Prozac, and Paxil. He was prescribed risperidone too, an antipsychotic often used for schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. So I'm not sure exactly what his diagnosis is, and I'm in the middle of trying to get some of the records. So I know I've deep dived it that much. Mm, I'm like, let's get a FOIA. So maybe he was schizophrenic or bipolar disorder, or maybe both, but that doesn't mean just because you have those things or conditions that you are a KILLER, you know? Like, yeah, maybe he struggled with it, but I don't know. That isn't why he did what he did, but he refused to take it, stating that it was the wrong thing for him. Experts noted that while he was not floridly psychotic in a typical schizophrenic sense, he exhibited features of both psychotic and schizotype personality disorder, along with extreme narcissism. So his behavior in the manifesto, which we're going to read right now, shows a disconnection from reality. It is more commonly analyzed as a combination of severe untreated social anxiety, profound narcissism, and delusional misogyny rather than schizophrenia, is what some believe. Let's finish this police report. At approximately 1320 hours, Corporal Pierce and I went to Redacted, spoke with a witness who was identified as 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗍, who informed me of the following. On 7/20, he was at a friend's house, Redacted, with a group of friends when a subject stood up and began to push two females. He said he caught one of the females who was pushed, preventing her from falling off of a 10-foot ledge. He said the subject then pushed the second female, who fell into a cradle position to prevent herself from falling off the ledge. He said the subject pushed two more people before jumping off the 10-foot ledge and running eastbound on 𝗍𝗵𝗆𝗆 Drive. I asked if he could describe the subject, and he informed me of the following. White male, adult, skinny build, 18 to 19 years old with dark colored hair. I asked if he knew what provoked the subject, and he said no. I also asked if he observed the subject with anyone at the party, and he said no. He stated that the subject's demeanor was strange, and he did not appear to be socializing with people at the party. It is my professional opinion the subject 𝗍𝗍𝗃 described was Rodger. At approximately 13:35 hours, Corporal Pierce and I went to Redacted and attempted to speak with the tenants of the residence, but were unable to get a hold of anyone. Peter Rodger is Elliot Rodger's father. Throughout the report, Peter Rodger and Elliot Rodger will be referred by their first names. Copy of Elliot medical release. On 7/23, Peter Rodgers faxed me a copy of Elliot's medical release. I observed the following. In the medical release, the paperwork, it stated that Elliot had redacted. Elliot was advised to contact an orthopedic for follow-up. So I'm assuming it was the broken ankle, which is intense. Okay, so there we go. That police report proves that he was pushing females and trying to push them off a ledge, which again goes into the whole, does he hate females? He hates females. That's wild. He was trying to push the females off the ledge. All of the students. Yeah, that's why we're I thought of covering it too, because last night when I was looking into this, it really, gave, because we're going into Bryan Kohberger again. You guys know I'm obsessed with that case, but I want to get into the paperwork. And I know you probably have already heard it or whatnot, but you haven't heard it here, and we like to hang out here anyways. So, but anyways, I was doing Bryan Kohberger research, but then this really reminded me of Nick Reiner too. And I think that if Nick Reiner hadn't been caught, I think he possibly would have unalived himself. Or maybe unalived somebody else. I don't know. That's just my opinion, my theory. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to play another video of him before we get into the manifesto. This is another creepy video of him. Like I said, I might put these on. I haven't heard anything new of BK, so you'll be the first. There's nothing new, but I just want to start from the beginning of the documents because, as you guys know, I have my personal opinions about that case and Bryan Kohberger, etc. It's like he knows reality, he just cannot live in it. So what is that? Because schizophrenia is a chronic Chronic severe mental health disorder characterized by disconnection from reality, affecting how one person thinks and behaves. It often involves psychotic symptoms like hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized thinking, usually appearing in late adolescence or early adulthood. It is not split personality, but a disruption in brain functioning. Who knows if about the hallucinations? I would need to see more of the medical documents, or at least maybe some of the other paperwork. But negative symptoms, behavior, reduced emotional expression, a lack of motivation, social withdrawal, and reduced speech. Combination of genetics, brain chemistry. I'm telling you. Why did he become this person? You know, once we watch the documentary, it talks a lot in depth about his childhood, and I'm starting to connect them because he had issues with his stepmother. And could that maybe have created like this dynamic? And I know and at some point he ends up having issues with his mom as well, although he was close to his mom to some extent. Rob Reiner knew Nick would end his life, and that is so, so sad. Yeah. You'll see in as many things everyone. I mean, yeah, we're gonna get through it. Let's watch one more video. Oh, maybe this one's not gonna be able to be played on this. Hold, please. I have to refresh. It's a very interesting, like made him a woman hater or something. Yeah. Like maybe the problems with both his bio mom and his stepmom. Maybe he was SA'd by a female when he was younger. I'm not saying it was one of the moms. I'm just saying, like, is it possible? Or maybe by a male, and so he hated women because he knew that he couldn't have them because of how he felt inside because of what had happened to him, maybe? That makes any sense? Okay, the video's ready. Give me one sec. Let me pull it back up.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. I'm up in the hills in Montecito right now. It's truly a beautiful day. But, as I've always said, a beautiful environment is the darkest hell if you have to experience it all alone. And sadly, I've been alone for a very long time. I've been attending college in Santa Barbara for about 2.5 years now. And in those 2.5 years, I've experienced nothing but loneliness and misery. And my problem is girls. There are so many beautiful girls here, but none of them give me a chance, and I don't know why. I don't know why you girls are so repulsed by me. It doesn't make sense. I do everything I can to appear attractive to you. I dress nice. I'm sophisticated. I'm magnificent.
If you females didn't know, this is like that he was gonna be this KILLER, and that he was like this physically, would you be attracted to him? I'm curious.
I have a nice car, a BMW. Well, it's nicer than 90% of the people at my college. You know, I'm polite. I'm the ultimate gentleman. And yet, you girls never give me a chance. I don't know why. You know, I put a lot of effort into dressing nice. These sunglasses here were $300. Giorgio Armani. So I'll put them on.
What the?
See?
What the?
See? Look at how fabulous I look.
What the?
You know, I feel so invisible as I walk through my college because none of the girls there pay attention to me. I see so many beautiful blonde-haired, just so many beautiful blonde-haired girls walking around everywhere in your revealing shorts, your cascading blonde hair, your pretty faces. And I want one for a girlfriend. I want to take a girl out on a date and prove to her that I'm worthy. I want to feel that sense of being worthy of a girl's love and affection. I'm 22 years old and I've never had a girlfriend. I'm still a virgin. I've never had the pleasure of having sex with a girl, sleeping with a girl, kissing a girl. I've never even held a girl's hand. Hell, I don't even have a young girl's phone number in my cell phone.
Oh.
And that's just such an injustice because I'm so magnificent. I deserve girls much more than all those slobs I see at my college who are somehow able to walk around with beautiful girls. I mean, even in the college town that I stay in during my semesters, as I walk around like the common areas of those towns or the areas where all the college parties happen, I see these obnoxious guys walking with beautiful girls. And that pisses me off because I should be the one with the girls. I mean, look at me. I'm gorgeous. Girls don't
Whoa.
see it. I don't understand why you're so repulsed by me. Why won't you give me a chance? It's ridiculous. I mean, the other day, I was doing some grocery shopping at Trader Joe's. And I was, of course, all alone, as I always am, which makes me feel so miserable. Anyway, I was doing my shopping and I see this like disgusting looking loser. Well, he's a loser in my opinion. And he walks in with these two beautiful blonde girls at his side. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was so insulted by that because I should be the one with the girls. But you never give me a chance. If you just give me a chance and get to know me, you'll see that I am worthy of you. Because I am. Unbelievable.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this world is so beautiful, but it's so sad and depressing when I have to experience it all alone. And I have to watch other guys able to walk around and enjoy their lives with beautiful girlfriends at their side. And I can only imagine how amazing their sex lives must be. I've never had any sex or anything like that. It's such an injustice. I don't know why you girls hate me so much. I've always wished I could ask you this, and this is my way of asking you this. This is the only way I can ask you.
Wow. I have seen some of them, not all of them. And I kind of have seen him through like other channels, but like the news. It's called Effort, Chemistry, and Chasing. Oh, I thought he was awkward. He's so awkward. He's dramatic, a pathetic victim. Of course, I find people physically attractive, but the way they move and their personalities are really the things that grab me. I cringe to traits that I find appealing, and this ain't it, said Reese Girl. He's not ugly. Like, it's not my type of dude, or I don't think he would have been like if we were in high school or college together. But I mean, it must have been like for sure his personality or what he was saying or something right off the bat because I don't know. Let's watch another. Actually, let's move on to the manifesto. We'll watch more clips later. Pity party is not attractive. Okay. It's his I am the best. I do think I'm going to take that line though. I am magnificent. In my opinion, he desperately wanted a partner, but also believed they should be begging him and flocking to him. So it would have always been a lose-lose for him. He was severely demented in his thinking. Okay. I see where you're going with that. Let's start this. Like I said, we're not going to read all of it today, but he was he was like, BK, yeah. Yeah, tomorrow I'll show you guys. I think I have the pictures and they really do remind me of BK. Let me get a drink. Okay. My Twisted World, The Story of Elliot Rodger by Elliot Rodger. Introduction. Humanity. So this is literally, I'm just going to say before we get started on reading it, this is the entire document, the Elliot Manifesto, Elliot Rodger Manifesto. It is not the same thing as the journals that we're going to read. So those are for a different life, but I am mega incel insufficient. Yeah, good one, 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆. And it's all a facade. He didn't really think this way, except with his entitlement. It's a twisted coat. Really? You don't really think he thought that way? Let's begin. Introduction. Humanity. All of my suffering on this world has been at the hands of humanity, particularly women. It has made me realize just how brutal and twisted humanity is as a species. All I ever wanted was to fit in and live a happy life amongst humanity. But I was cast out and rejected, forced to endure an existence of loneliness and insignificance, all because the females of the human species were incapable of seeing the value in me. This is the story of how I, Elliot Rodger, came to be. This is so weird. You know the Luigi Mangione manifesto that we read? I don't know if I ever read the rest of that, but we read a ton of it. It's giving very much that. This is a story of how I, Elliot Rodger, came to be. This is a story of my entire life. It is a dark story of sadness, anger, and hatred. It is a story of war against cruel injustice. In this magnificent story, we will disclose every single detail about my life, every single significant experience that have pulled from my superior memory, as well as how those experiences have shaped my views of the world. This tragedy did not have to happen. I didn't want things to turn out this way, but humanity forced my hand, and this story will explain why. My life didn't start out dark and twisted. It started out as a happy and blissful child, living my best life to the fullest in a world I thought was good and pure. Part 1, A Blissful Beginning, ages 0 through 5. On the morning of July 24th, 1991, in a London hospital, I was born. I breathed in the first breath of life as I entered this world, weighing only 5.4 pounds. My parents must have been filled with happiness and pride that day. They had just witnessed the birth of their first child, and they named me Elliot Oliver Robertson Rodger. I was born to young parents. My father, Peter Rodger, was only 26 when he impregnated my mother, Chin, who was 30. Peter is of British descent, hailing from the prestigious Rodger family, a family that was once part of the wealthy upper classes before they lost all of their fortune during the Great Depression. My father's father, George Rodger, was a renowned photojournalist who had taken very famous photographs during the Second World War, though he failed to reacquire the family's lost fortune. My mother is of Chinese descent. She was born in Malaysia and moved to England at a young age to work as a nurse on several film sets, where she became friends with very important individuals in the film industry, including George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. She even dated George Lucas for a short time. My mother and father had been married for a couple of years before my mother became pregnant with me. In fact, her pregnancy was an accident. She had been taking pills to prevent pregnancy, but when she visited my father on one of his film sets, she fell ill, and the medication she took for her illness thwarted the effect of the anti pregnancy pills. And so their lovemaking during this period resulted in my life. Only a couple months after my birth, I went on my first vacation. My parents took me on a boat to France. I was already a traveler. Of course, I had no memories of this trip. My mother said that I cried a lot. At the time I was born, my mother and father were living in a house in London, but shortly after my birth, they decided to move to the countryside. We moved to a large house made of red brick in the county of Sussex, with vast grass fields surrounding it. The house even had a name, the Old Rectory. This is where I spent my early childhood, the first 5 years of my life, and it was beautiful. The memories I have of this period are only memories of happiness and bliss. My father was a professional photographer at the time, just in the stage of becoming a director. My mother, who gave up her nursing career to stay home and looked after me. My grandma on my mother's side, who I would call Amma, moved in with us to help out my mother. I would spend a lot of time with Amma during these years. This was a time of discovery, excitement, and fun. I had just entered this new world, and I knew nothing of the pain it would bring me later on. I enjoyed life with innocent bliss. I can remember playing in the fields and going on long walks with Amma to pick berries. She would always warn me not to touch the stinging nettles that sometimes grew in our fields. But my curiosity got the better of me, and I got stung a few times. There was a swing in the back of our yard, which I had many good times on. The first birthday I remember was my third birthday. My parents threw a party for me in our field. I had helicopter birthday cake. I can remember one of my friends cutting off the first piece and giving it to my friend. I threw a tantrum because I was expecting to get the first piece. It was my birthday after all. My father brought me a toy tractor that I could ride around in, and I would play with it all the time after that. Sometime after my third birthday, we all went on vacation to Malaysia, my mother's home country. I have only flashes of memory of that vacation. I enjoyed it very much. We visited a few of my mother's relatives. For preschool, I was enrolled at Dorset House, an upscale all-boys private school in the countryside near where I lived. Anytime I hear private school or like some kind of, what do you call it, where they send their kids away? Anti-pregnancy, aka birth control. Yeah. One of Koberger's he said, I lied about that. Oh, yeah. And he sounded exactly like Elliot. Oh, Jodi Arias vibe. Yeah, does give Jodi Arias vibe. Okay, so let's see. It says upscale, all private boys school in the countryside near where we lived. I was forced to wear a uniform, which I hated because I had to wear uncomfortable socks up to my knees. I was very nervous and I cried on my first day there. I remember two friends I made named George and David. I would always play in the sand pit with them. I didn't like school at Dorset House very much. I found the rules to be too strict. My least favorite part of it was the football sessions. I never understood the game and I could never keep up with other boys in the field. So I always stood by the goalkeeper and pretended to be the second goalkeeper. My favorite part was playing in the woods after lunch. There was a particular climbing structure that I had a lot of fun with. My preschool class once went on a field trip to the park where I had the misfortune of getting lost. As my class was eating lunch, I ventured off to another area of the park, and when I returned, my class had moved. I remember panicking and asking strangers for help. It was a terrifying experience for me. I was eventually led to my class by the strangers I talked to. I remember one funny incident when we were taking school pictures. They forced us to sit cross legged, which I hated doing. So I absolutely refused to sit that way for the picture. The teachers eventually conceded, and the picture was taken with me one being the only one sitting differently. The holiday season was the best part of the year for me. It must have been very cold in England, but I don't remember the cold. I just remember how much fun I had. I was filled with joy when it started snowing outside. Loved playing in the snow. My father helped me build a snowman cone once. We would start with little snowballs and roll them around our field until we formed the body, and then we would decorate it. During Christmas, my parents always had parties and gatherings. My father's best friend, 𝗝cie𝗶hes, who was also my godfather, came to our house frequently. We would often go to my father's parents' house in Smarden, Kent. I would call my grandmother on my father's side Grandma Jinx. My memories of my grandfather, George Rodger, are in fact, he had fallen very ill at this period. My father's brother, Uncle Johnny, had a son 1 year younger than me, who was named George after my grandfather. I always played games with cousin George in Grandma Jinx's garden. The two of us got along well. On New Year's Eve, our neighbors once set up a bonfire party in the field next to our house. I was fascinated by how big the fire was. I had never seen anything like it, and it astounded my little mind. This was also the first time I saw fireworks. My father gave me one of those sparklers to play with, which I was enraptured by. I need to get like the date on when he wrote this because like did he write this? Let me look it up because I'm curious how close to the shootings did he write this? Let me see if there's an exact date on it. Oh yeah. The entries dating back to 2012. Oh. He emailed this document which detailed his frustration and violent intentions. So it goes back to as early as 2012. And he continued to update them through 2012 and through 2013. Dang. So he was really like documenting everything and his thoughts and stuff. There, I'm curious about his behaviors with his family during these periods of time. There was one very special place that my father would often take me to. It was at the top of a range of beautiful rolling hills that I termed the London Hills because I thought that London was on the other side of them. We would go there to fly kites. I can remember these experiences vividly. The hills were full of tall straw-like grass, and the weather was always windy, perfect for kite flying. It was a time for utmost happiness and joy for me. My father taught me to fly a kite by myself. The wind was so strong that I feared it would lift up my frail little body and carry me into the clouds. Once I got the hang of it, it was exhilarating. We would fly our kites together and run with the wind. I will never forget that place. I actually loved kites when I was younger. I did. He had no clue how to interact with humans. But like, why? If he's from a good family, a good background, he's educated. I don't know. He's very dark. My favorite childhood film was The Land Before Time. Oh, I loved Land Before Time. I used to watch that movie all the time with Amma. It was about a baby dinosaur named Littlefoot who had just lost his mother and was journeying through a dangerous world to find the Great Valley, a land of prosperity and peace. I remember the feeling of utter sadness I felt during the scene when his mother died and the triumphant and happy emotion that swept over me when he finally discovered the Great Valley after going through all of the hardships to get there. I watched this movie so many times that just thinking about it brings the emotions back. It was a big part of my childhood. Already a world traveler, I went on a trip to Spain with my parents and my parents' friends, Patrick and Lupe. It was the fourth country I've been to at a young age. We stayed in an exquisite castle-like house that I believe was owned by a friend of ours. The house had a tower that I was extremely curious about. At one point, my parents and their friends ventured up to the top of it, but they made me stay below because I was too young. I was sorely disappointed. As they were climbing the tower, I went outside to look at the cacti surrounding the house. The cacti also sparked my curiosity, and I foolishly decided to touch a cactus. I ended up getting cactus needles all over my hand, and it took a long time for my mother to remove them. Shortly after my trip to Spain, we went on another trip to Greece. We stayed at a hotel near the beach. It was very hot there. The weather was new to me as I was used to the British climate. The trip to Greece was significant because during this time, my father received the news of the death of my grandfather, George Rodger. He died of natural causes on my fourth birthday at the age of 87. It was the first experience I had of the death of a close relative and the first time I saw my father cry. My 4-year-old self could not imagine my father ever crying. And so when I saw him cry that day, I knew how shaken he was. It was a very sad day for all of us. We immediately flew home. Elijah says, sounds pretty spoiled to me. I mean, yeah. I believe that it was during the time after my fourth birthday that my father came to the decision to eventually move to the United States. As he was just becoming a director, he believed Los Angeles would offer more opportunities. We took a short trip to California to gain an initial look at it. I don't remember much of this trip, but I do remember having a good time. At the age of 4, Elliot Rodger, had already been to 6 different countries. Wow. Yeah, that's nice. Who can claim that, eh? The United Kingdom, France, Spain, Greece, Malaysia, and the United States. It was also during this time that my mother became pregnant again. I was going to have a sibling. My parents decided to have another baby, this pregnancy being planned so that I can have a sibling to grow up with. We later discovered that it was going to be a girl. Is that maybe a factor in this and why he hated females? Like maybe he didn't really want a sibling and then it was a female? The dude lived in his own head. So he was 3 when he was second going. Yeah, I guess. Like a 4-year-old thinks like that, right? Hmm. So we later discovered it's going to be a girl. Before my 5th birthday, my mother went into labor to deliver the baby. I can remember the night vividly. I was very ill that night, a bad omen. I stayed at home with my ama while my mother and father were at the hospital, and we watched movies together. I was fraught with anticipation the whole time, and then my parents came back late in the night, and with them they brought a little black-haired baby wrapped in a bundle. I had a baby sister, and they named her Georgia. I have no memories of what happened on my 5th birthday. Shortly after it, we were making plans to permanently move to the United States. The news excited me, but I was sad at the prospect of leaving my life in England behind. My father took a short trip to the US by himself to scout out houses. I remember talking on the phone to him while he was there. He told me he found a very nice house for us to move to. I asked him if it had a swimming pool, and he said it did. This news made me very happy. And then the time came. We started packing everything up at the old rectory. On my last day at Dorset House School, my teacher was giving us all candies when my mother came to pick me up early. I said goodbye to all the friends I had there. This was the last time I saw them. My father was given the offer to buy the old rectory for about £40,000. We were only renting it at the time, but he declined, a decision he would regret later on, as it would have been a worthy investment. I cried as we drove away from the old rectory. All the experiences I had there, playing in the fields, driving my toy tractor, tending to my garden, going on walks with Amma, swinging on the swing, all these experiences were gone. I was about to start a new life. We boarded the plane and took off to America. Part 2, Growing Up in America, ages 5 through 9. The plane ride was like a dimension between worlds. I was about to enter a whole new world, a whole new life, but none of that went through my little 5-year-old head at the time. I slept for most of the journey there, and I can remember looking out the window at the vast stretch of clouds below us. I wondered what it would be like to go down there and run along them as if they were a landmass, not thinking about the fact that I would fall right through. When we arrived in America, I was very tired. We collected our luggage and loaded them onto a new SUV that my father rented. The image of us driving out of the airport is still fresh in my mind. I often think of it as it was my first step into my new life in the US. I was so sleepy when we reached our new house that I didn't even bother to look around yet. The house was partly furnished and we were already had a sofa and a television. The first thing we did was watch a movie. The movie was Independence Day, and I fell asleep at some parts, but managed to watch most of the movie. In the morning, I was full of energy. I eagerly clambered up the stairs to search for my new room. I looked at all the rooms before singling out the one that I wanted as mine. When I told my mother about my decision, she told me that room I picked out was meant to be my sister George's room. I got a bit upset, but eventually settled for the room next to it. I feel like that's something that maybe would make him jealous. Like, did Elliot send his weird videos to the news? No, it was just YouTube. Seems like his parents didn't get a chance to control it before it went public. I don't know, y'all. Some interviews I've seen, I feel like his parents knew exactly what was going on. Like, there was more things than just emails. There was, like, videos. They were finding weird things on his computer. Like, there was a lot going on. The house was quite big, with white walls and a white backyard that led to a gated swimming pool area. It was located in an upscale part of the Woodland Hills. The town of Woodland Hills has great significance in my life. It would be the town that I grow up in. A large portion of all my life experiences, good and bad, would take place in this town. I can recall the first time I said the name on my lips. Woodland Hills, my new hometown. Soon after settling into our lovely home, we were disturbed by a problem typical of California, an earthquake. My mother woke me up in the middle of the night and we all hid under the kitchen table. The earthquake actually turned out to be a very small, even with smaller aftershocks following it, but I was still scared. Having never experienced an earthquake before, the only impression I had of earthquakes were the large land rupturing earthquakes I saw in the land before time. After this experience, I began to see earthquakes as common minor disturbances. There I was, a young 5-year-old boy who has so far lived a happy and joyful life, about to embark on a new journey, the journey of growing up in the United States of America. I felt a surge of enthusiasm and at the prospect. I now considered myself an American kid, as I told my parents. I got accustomed to all the American TV shows, and I started to adopt an American accent. I was looking forward to my new life. Parents know their children if they are paying attention. Yeah, I think on his YouTube, he did this last one. Yes, he did, Evie. I think his parents were paying attention, right? They were getting him help. Or no, maybe they were just, they were getting him help, but maybe they didn't care for him. Although his dad claims a whole different thing. Soon enough, I was enrolled in school. My father did some extensive school searching after our arrival, and he found a small private school on Shoup Avenue named Pinecrest. I was to attend kindergarten there. Pinecrest. My 5-year-old self at the time could not imagine how significant this place will eventually become for me. A great turning point of my life will eventually take place there. A tragic turn for the worse, but that will come later, in a darker chapter of my story when I enter my preteen years. For now, I was a kindergartner who was enjoying life to the fullest. Kindergarten at Pinecrest didn't turn out so well. I had a very unpleasant teacher who was impatient with how far behind I was in schoolwork, as I had missed a couple months of school due to the move. During playtime, this teacher would keep me in the classroom to do extra work in order to catch up. My parents didn't like this teacher, and one of their friends recommended another school for me, a private school nearby named Farm School. It was named after the farm that was attached to it. After only a couple of weeks at Pinecrest, my parents took me out of it. I would not return again until I go there for middle school 6 years later. My first day at farm school turned out to be a good start. I had two teachers, and they had made an effort to introduce me to other kids. There was one particular boy named Joey, who they assigned to show me around. He was nice to me at first, but would soon turn out to be a rotten little prick who I would always get into fights with. He then became my greatest enemy at the school. The first real friend I made in the United States was a girl named Maddie Humphreys. Isn't that ironic? The first friend I made in the United States was a girl. She was the first female friend I've ever had, and she would be the last. Maddie and I started playing together at farm school, and eventually my parents became very good friends with her parents. Maddie's father is the famous British musician Paul Humphreys, and her mother is named Maureen, though we would call her Mo. They had a nice house in the Hidden Hills. Our families got together often to have barbecue dinners. I was a 5-year-old boy playing with a girl my own age, and like any normal boy would do, I was enjoying life in a world that I loved. I was happy and completely oblivious of the fact that my future on this world would only turn to darkness and misery because of girls. The girl who was my friend Maddie would eventually come to represent everything I hate and despise, everything that is against me and everything that I'm against. I was playing innocently with this girl in the manner that all children play. We even took baths together. It was the only time in my life I would see a girl my age naked. When I think about the experiences I had during my friendship with her, it would make me think ominously of the fact that all the children, boys and girls, start out the same. We all start out innocent and we all start out together. Only through experiences and circumstances of growing up do we drift apart from allegiances and face each other as enemies. That is when wars happen, and that is when the true nature of humanity rises to the surface. At this stage of my life, of course, my war hadn't started yet, and it wouldn't start for a long time. I was enjoying my life without a care in the world, not knowing that all my joy is destined to turn to dust. Okay, so maybe it was the friendship with Maddie too that made him this way. Like he says she's a staple of why he became like this. I wonder, like, was he in love with her and she rejected him? Did they like do something to each other? I think they dumped him in school and that was that. Yeah, I agree, Evie. Somebody was always picking on him. Yeah, and that does create a very angry, hostile person, correct? My aunt worked at Pinecrest, basically rich people's daycare. Really? His look on life is bizarre. Hey, Wilson. My kindergarten year at farm school was filled with exciting new experiences, all healthy for a growing boy. I had friends. I had play dates. I socialized with other boys at school. Despite getting into lots of conflicts with Joey, I only got into trouble once over a quarrel with another boy during playtime. And I was sent to the principal's office. Having never been in such trouble at school before, I recall being overcome with nervousness and fear, for which caused me to cry for an hour. I especially enjoyed our arts and crafts time, and I loved when our class would go on visits to the school's farm. After a bright and joyous school year, it was time to graduate. I was swelled with pride as I wore my graduation cap at the ceremony. I loved that school very much, and I was sad to leave it. Kindergarten was over, and soon I would enter elementary school. My 6th birthday soon followed. My parents arranged a Disney-themed party at a play center that my mother had taken me to frequently. I invited everyone from farm school class, all the boys and the girls, except for Joey. I deliberately omitted Joey as an act of revenge for being mean to me throughout the year, and I felt a sense of satisfaction in doing so. The party was cheerful, and there was a man dressed as Merlin to host the festivities. I sat at the end of the table during my birthday meal wearing a wizard hat. As my cake was presented to me, I felt only elation and glee as I took in the breath and blew out my candles. Life was good. 6 years old. My favorite part of the day during this jubilant period of my life was our afternoon trips to the park, specifically Serenia Park. The park was beautiful and green with concrete pathways cutting through the fields of grass and a fun playground for us kids to play in. I always took to playing on the slides, and sometimes I would go on the swing, though my father had to push me. I remember getting jealous of other boys who were able to swing by themselves, boys who were even younger than myself. It was the second time I realized my lack of physical capability. The first time I had such an inkling of my shortcomings were those disastrous football sessions at Dorset House. Eventually, my father got around to teaching me how to swing by myself, and after some practice, I was able to do it. After that, I would always soar up and down on that swing in the Serenia Park playground as well into the hour of twilight. He's a weirdo. Yeah. I was very small and short statured for my age. I never gave this much concern during my early childhood, but this fact fully dawned on me the day my family took a trip to Universal Studios. At the time, I loved dinosaurs. I was fascinated by them. I had just recently watched the movie Jurassic Park, and when I found out that there was a Jurassic Park theme ride at Universal Studios, I couldn't wait to go on it. We queued up in the line and waited for an hour. When reached the front, the park staff presented me with a measuring stick and it and I didn't fit the requirements. I saw other boys my age admitted onto the ride, but I was denied because I was too short. The ride that I was so excited to enjoy at the theme park was forbidden to me. I immediately fell into a crying tantrum, and my mother had to comfort me. Being denied an entry on a simple amusement park ride due to my height may seem small, like only a small injustice, but it was big for me at the time. Little did I know this injustice was very small indeed compared to all the things I'll be denied in the future because of my height. We resorted to trying out the ET ride, which I was admitted to. I had a miserable time on this ride. However, the dark atmosphere and the mechanically moving alien statues that lined the queuing area scared the hell out of me. By the time we got to the actual ride, I was crying in fright, but later calmed down as the ride turned out to be mild and relaxing towards the end. I always enjoyed my family's get togethers with the Humphreys. These get togethers became a common occurrence in my life. Maddie became a very close friend of mine. She was the only friend from farm school who I continued to see after I graduated. They had a huge backyard area, and the two of us would go on adventures. She also grew up watching The Land Before Time, and we would watch the sequels together whenever they released a new one. Sometimes when I went to her house, she would have other female friends there, and I played with them too. I had no trouble interacting with girls at that age, surprisingly. My 6-year-old self was playing with girls, unbeknownst to the horror and misery the female gender would inflict upon me later in my life. In the present day, these girls would treat me like the scum of the earth, but at the time, we were all equals. Such bitter irony. What? He cries a lot. I meant in his head, everybody was picking on him. Ew, that's not normal unless you're a couch normal heavy. I feel something happened with Maddie. It was now time for me to start first grade. My parents enrolled me at Serenia Avenue Elementary School, which was just down the street from Serenia Park. I would remain, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Serenia? I would remain at the school. I wouldn't remain at the school for too long, however, because only weeks into my first grade year, my parents decided that they were going to move to Topanga. So I watched an interview with his dad, and I did notice that they moved around a lot. Um, it seems like he had an unstable childhood, although it seems stable, right? Because he was spoiled and they had money and he got to do what he wanted, but maybe behind closed doors it was something else. Most of the kids at the Serenia Avenue School will end up going to Taft High School nearby, a place that will cause me great suffering in the future. Perhaps some of the kids in my school at Serenia will end up turning into those who would bully me at Taft. I don't remember any of the kids from my class there, so I will never know the answer to that. It's very disturbing to think about. I quite enjoyed my brief time at Serenia. My parents sometimes made me stay an hour after school. I believe this was because they figured it would help me make friends. Am I saying that right? Serene. Yeah, I think I am saying that right. I enjoyed my time. My parents sometimes made me stay after school. I believe this was because they would figure it would help me make friends. I can remember this after school playtime being a positive experience. There was always games that I played with other kids, and thus I was a bit frustrated when my parents told me they were going to transfer me to another school after only a couple weeks of settling into Serenia. The frustration would soon cease because the years that I would spend at Topanga Elementary School would be some of the best years of my life, the last years of being a carefree child. A lot of moving of schools, although I know it's common. If there's something going on, he would have spilled it in this manifesto. I've just found out. Oh, yeah, I've seen that gala actually. A lot of mass shooters write these manifestos and videos because they want to be famous when they're gone, like, make me famous. Did he want that? Did he want to be famous? I feel like he just wanted attention from girls, but I guess, yeah, he wanted to be famous. That does suck as a kid, and it can, I know it sounds corny, but it can lead to other issues. I started at first grade at Topanga Elementary School a couple of weeks before we prepared to move to Topanga. Topanga is a secluded mountainous community surrounding a canyon that runs through the Santa Monica Mountains, located in between the San Fernando Valley and the Pacific Coast Highway. We only had passed through this community a few times when we would take trips to the beach. It has a certain rugged beauty about it. On my first day at Topanga Elementary, I was very nervous. Since it was about a month after the first grade term started, I was going to be the new kid at school. I remember the nervousness taking over my body as my mother drove us up the steep road that led into the school proper. My new class was just lining up to start the day as we walked onto the main courtyard. My teacher, Miss Matsuyama, was very nice and understanding. My mother said goodbye, and I got in line with other students. The first kid I saw there was a chubby boy named Bryce, who was staring at me strangely. As we got to class, Miss Matsuyama assigned one of the students to show me around and help me adjust. This student happened to be none other than Philip Blozier. Philip was always very mature for his age, and he was nice to me on my first day. He became my first friend at Topanga Elementary. The day turned out to be one of great fun. Class time was not too boring, and we did some fun arts and crafts activities. For recess and lunch, there was two playgrounds, the upper and the lower. The first and the second graders would go to the lower playground, and the third, fourth, and fifth graders would go to the upper. The lower playground was smaller, but it had some nice amenities, especially the sloping hill to the side of it, where I would enjoy running up and down and kicking dust, a game I instantly created due to the dust like dirt on this hill. When my mother came to pick me up, I recall having so much fun that I didn't want to leave. That's a first. In the past, I was always eager to go home after spending hours at school. The drive to and from school was a long one, or at least long for my 6-year-old self. My favorite part of the drive was the descent from Topanga into the valley. The view of the broad expanse of the valley was breathtaking as it opened up before us, clearing the final hill. I would make that trip through the winding roads of Topanga Canyon every day for the next couple of weeks before we moved to the new house. Sometimes my mother would pick me up, and sometimes my nanny would. I don't remember the name of this nanny, as she was only with us for a brief period of time. I wonder about that nanny. That was not any normally note set schedules, which kids needs. I agreed, Alicia. I do. The amount of details he remembers is creepy, especially like, I mean, I remember some from when I was like 6 years old, but not a lot. He was an overthinker for sure. Yeah, this explains a lot. His bravado and wanting to be the center of attention and the entitlement, thinking he was able to win people over. Yeah, practically 3D affairs. It says narcissism, the personality type that if they can't have what they want, you will be forced to remember them for the crime spree. I loved the new house the moment I laid eyes on it. It was a beautiful round wooden house located up the road from Valley View Drive in the better part of Topanga. It had 2 stories, a swimming pool and a lovely deck that provided a view of the lush mountains. I instantly named it the Roundhouse. I was sad to leave our house in Woodland Hills, our first house in America. I would miss the good times I had there, playing with Maddie and my other friends, swimming in the pool, the close proximity to Serenia Park, where I spent a lot of time enjoying the elations of a carefree childhood. Our new roundhouse in Topanga, however, turned out to be a worthy replacement. My room at the roundhouse was a bit smaller than my old one, but I remember it being very cozy. Shortly after we moved in, Amma came to visit from England, and she baked my favorite peanut butter cookies. We had some very happy times during the beginnings of my life there. My father's new directing career was taking off quite well too, and he would go away a lot to direct commercials for prestigious companies, leaving my mother and nanny to look after me. The only downside of this was my father's absence from my life. Despite this, I always looked up to him as a powerful and successful man. Okay, so the absence of his father in his life. That's kind of a red flag. And it definitely contradicts what his dad says. And I don't know, it kind of bugs me because Elliot's not here to speak on it. So his father really can't say anything about him being a perfect parent. But or close to it. I don't know. I feel some type of way about it. Why? I don't know. Maybe just the vibes I personally get. Despite this, I always looked up to him as a powerful and successful man. Adjusting to my new environment in Topanga was quite easy for me, especially since school was so much fun. I was now a Topanga kid. During recess at school, I started noticing this boy with slightly long blonde hair who also enjoyed kicking dust. Before I met him, I always mentally nicknamed him the King Arthur kid due to the regal look his hairstyle gave him. It was only a matter of time before our dusting, kicking antics would collide with each other. When we teamed up and starting we then teamed up and started playing the game together, and this was the start of a long, interesting friendship. The boy's name was James Ellis, and he would become my best friend for the next 14 years of my life. Sometime the two of us would join with Philip and some other boys and play fun games like handball, war games, and tag. Soon enough, I would start having frequent play dates with James. His house was just down the hill from mine. James' father was named Artie. His mother's name, Kim, became one of my mother's best friends. Christmas arrived quickly, and for my present, I got my first video game console, a Nintendo 64. I had little knowledge of video games before this. Ooh, my Nintendo 64 was everything to me back then. Wow. Is this written in a feminine energy or am I tripping? Well, Wilson, some would say yes. I looked it up. It said he did want to be famous. Really? I can see that. Sought fame and notoriety through his actions. Yeah. I barely knew what they were. My father is the one who introduced me to them. With the Nintendo 64, With the Nintendo 64, my father bought the games Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire, and Turok, Dinosaur Hunter. I was fascinated with this new form of entertainment, and my father and I would bond a lot over our video game sessions. Of course, while playing these video games, my innocent, happy self knew nothing of the significant role video games would play during a large portion of my life, and the sanctuary such games would eventually provide me from the cruelties of this world. For now, they were just a form of entertainment like any other hobby. I know this was like a major big deal too because he was obsessed with World of Warcraft, um, which those are pretty violent, right? I've never played World of Warcraft, but it sounds like it. In my opinion, he would see things and situations in his head, and when these things did not happen or turn out the way he wanted in his, he could not handle it. Life was good at the roundhouse, but soon enough, I had to witness my mother and father get into a lot of arguments. Oh, here we go. Let me get a drink. Okay. I was too young at the time to understand what they were arguing about, but I knew they were not getting along. It didn't really concern me all too much because every other aspect of my life was wonderful. I had play dates with James Ellis every week. Sometimes he would surprise me with a visit after school as we lived so close by. I went over to Philip's house a few times as well. I met his younger brother, Jeffrey. The Blozers also became good friends with my mother. They lived in a nice house up the road from our own, with a deck that provided an extraordinary view of the Mountains. At some point, I learned about the possibility that parents can separate, divorce, no longer together. The prospect baffled my little mind. I only I once sat down with my mother on our outside deck and asked her if she and father would ever divorce. She told me it will never happen and that I had nothing to worry about. I was relieved by that. Little did I know such a thing would happen in only a few months' time. My first grade teacher ended my first grade year ended splendidly. I made a few lasting friends and had a blast at Topanga Elementary. I always considered myself a good, well-behaved student, so I was a bit disappointed at the time I got in trouble. My class had a system where if we any do something wrong, we would change our color from green to yellow and then to red if we did any more troublemaking. Oh, that's funny. That's what ours was too. Did you guys have the same? You'd have to like flip your card. I wouldn't say World of Warcraft is violent. Oh, okay. I wonder if Elliot was gay and maybe he just didn't want to admit it or knew how to deal with it. Hmm. I thought I would never have to change my card, but I had to change it to yellow a few times for minor things. When first grade ended, I made the resolution that in second grade, I will never be forced to change my card. After my last day of school, I was looking forward to a long summer break, my favorite time of the year. I was a bit dismayed when my parents made me attend summer camp. My father had to go away a lot for work, and my mother needed to have some time to look after baby Georgia. Summer camp wasn't all that bad. I had fun. It consisted of kids from first through fourth grade, and we played lots of games and watched movies. Summer camp, so they basically just didn't have time for him. If you're looking after the baby, why can't you look after him? And you have to, I guess, so he's not bored. 7 years old, my last memory of my parents being together was my seventh birthday. I would always cherish it. We didn't have a party for my seventh birthday, but more of a small get together for lunch. Maddie and the Humphreys were our only guest. We celebrated it at Gladstone's, my favorite restaurant at the time. It was in the Pacific Palisades right on the beach. I had my favorite meal, lobster. It was a very happy day for all of us. I was turning 7. That was a big number for my little mind. I had spent 7 years on this fascinating world, and my life was at a good start. I had loving parents. I had friends to play with. I was having fun at school, and I had all the toys a little boy could want. A stranger would look at the 7-year-old boy and think he has a great life in front of him, that there's nothing to worry about. Indeed, there shouldn't be anything to worry about. But I was just a child. I still had a few more years to enjoy life in carefree free bliss before I would eventually discover how twisted and cruel this fascinating world really is. My parents seemed happy that day. I remember them laughing and having a good time. It would be the last time I remember them happy together. Perhaps they really weren't. Perhaps they were just putting up a front so that I could enjoy my birthday. I couldn't even fathom the possibilities of my parents separating. It makes sense. I can't believe I didn't think of that till now. He was likely over self-conscious. Yeah, he asked his mother, "Do you plan on divorcing father?" I know. Yeah, he does call him father. Is that weird? Because I call my father father. Is that not like common? Well, I mean, I know you can call him dad too. Hello. Some teachers loved me, some teachers hated me. Dude, I was a troublemaker. I always had yellow card, red card, so don't worry about me. Um, Lobster at 7 is nuts. Dude, that's my favorite meal. Yep, that will make anyone sick. Too self-conscious. Brian must have picked it up from Elliot. The more I read this, I do like I see it. I can see Brian Koberger. You call your dad father? Yeah, is that weird? Oh my God, I'm cracking up. Yeah. I hate it when grown women call their dad daddy. That I do not do. And if I did, my dad would probably look at me with crazy eyes. Like he would be like, "What?" He would probably think I was like, I don't know, something wrong. Like maybe on rugs or something. I don't do rugs, but he would probably look at me like that. That could be worse, so you good. Yeah, I do. I call him father. It's a bit weird. Please. Do you call your mother mother? No, I do not actually. I call my mom mama or mom. I don't know. Now I'm like, he probably identified with Roger in many ways. I think so. Let's continue. Very shortly after my 7th birthday, the news came. I believe it was my mother who told me that she and my father were getting a divorce. My mother, who only a few months before told me that such a thing will never happen. I was absolutely shocked, outraged, and above all, overwhelmed. This was a huge life changing event. My father was to stay at the roundhouse, and my mother would have to move to another smaller house in Topanga. It was arranged that me and my sister will mostly be living with our mother, and we would go to father's house on the weekends. My father was required to pay child support to my mother so she can look after us. My life would change forever after this. The family I grew up with was has split in half, and from then on, I would grow into two different households. I remember crying. All the happy times I spent with my mother and father as a family were gone, only to remain in memory. It was a very sad day. Just like the move to the US, it would be like starting a whole new life with a new routine. Despite the initial sadness I felt from my family splitting in half, my new life situation wasn't all that bad. It was still practically the same life, though. I lived with my mother in one house and my father in another. My mother's new house was small and red in color, located up a steep driveway from Canyon Boulevard. I would call it the quote unquote red house. It was the smallest house I've lived in at this point. It only had two bedrooms, and I had to share a room with my sister Georgia. We had a bunk bed, and I slept on the top. I was quite uncomfortable with this change at first, being used to having my own room and living in bigger houses. My mother's kind and loving nature, however, made up for this, and she turned the household into a fun environment which I enjoyed living in. After spending the first week at mother's house, father came to pick me up and my sister for the weekend. Georgia had become very attached to mother after this week, and she's burst into tears when we drove off. I too was a bit distressed at having to go from one house to the other every week, but I would soon get used to it. The roundhouse was very different without mother being there. When we entered, I felt a wave of sadness creep over me as I was reminded of my life when mother and father were together. The house was full of memories, happy, cheerful memories that were lost in the past. With my mother missing from it, there was a sense of bleakness and loss to the place. Father did his best to cheer us up. I could tell that he too was very saddened by the recent events. My father soon rented one of the rooms of the roundhouse to his good friend Dan Pirelli, one of his first friends in America. Dan used to live close to our house in the Woodland Hills until he was struck with financial troubles, which I'm assuming is why he started renting a room for my father. I would always call him, quote unquote, Uncle Dan. From this point on, Uncle Dan would stay with us as a lodger for a few years. The time to start second grade arrived. My new teacher was named Miss Weisberg, and she was very kind. The students in my class were mostly the same as my first grade class, with only one or two new students who transferred from other schools. I made a few new friends, such as Shane and Tommy. I was very disappointed to find out that James Ellis would not be returning to Topanga Elementary for second grade. In fact, his family would be moving out of Topanga to the Pacific Palisades, where they would be renting a house from their friends to the Lemonsons. My father stayed at the roundhouse. My father's stay at the roundhouse was very brief. He suffered some temporary financial setbacks on top of the divorce, so he decided to move to a smaller house on old Topanga Canyon. It was a very abrupt move, and I would never see the roundhouse again. One day, after he picked me and my sister up from my mother's, he took us to the new house, and that was it. The house was a small two-story house in a more rustic part of the Topanga Mountains. The upstairs portion only had a bedroom and a bathroom, and it was rented to Uncle Dan. All around the outside of the house were very small hills and hiking trails that led up to the mountains. Overlooking these hills was a massive, imposing rock called Big Rock. When I first saw Big Rock, I told myself that one day I'll climb to the top of it. I took a liking to this new environment, and every time I visited on the weekends, I would always be outside exploring and adventuring. There was always new places to discover in that secluded region. I didn't venture too far into the wilderness, however, because of the danger of coyotes and mountain lions. How he remembers this like this is just really interesting. Yeah, I call my dad Pops. I do like Pops too. Do you say father? Oh, do you say father to your mom when you're talking about your dad, Melly? Yeah, sometimes I do. We're still on that. Allegedly, yeah. After only a couple of months since my 7th birthday, a new and very important person would come into my life. After father picked us up from school one day and took us to his house, I saw a woman with dark hair and fair skin standing in the kitchen, and she introduced herself as Samaya. She would become my stepmother. Father told me she would be living with us from now on. At first, I thought she was just another friend who was temporarily staying with father, similar to what Uncle Dan was doing. My father having a girlfriend so shortly after divorcing my mother didn't even occur to me. I couldn't understand it. Soon enough, though, I realized that Samaya was, in fact, his girlfriend, and they were together just like how my father and my mother were. It was the first time I learned of the concept of a quote unquote girlfriend, and it was hard to grasp. Before that, I always thought a man and a woman had to be married before living in such a manner, and that it would take a long time for a union to happen. Father finding a new girlfriend in such a short amount of time baffled me. I was completely taken aback. So he didn't like Maddie, his bestie. He wasn't happy about his sister, Georgia, a female. He's not happy about his dad's new girlfriend, a female. He feels like she probably it's not her place, which is understandable, but I'm just wondering if all of these things lead up to him hating females the way he does. He's clearly painting a picture. Good one. Good point, Wilson. Because of my father's acquisition of a new girlfriend, my mind got the impression that my father was a man that women found attractive, as he was able to find a girlfriend in such a short period of time from divorcing my mother. I subconsciously held them in a higher regard because of this. It is very interesting how this phenomenon works. The males who can easily find female mates garner more respect from their fellow men, even children. How ironic is it that my father, one of those men who could easily find a girlfriend, has a son who would struggle all his life to find a girlfriend? I soon became accustomed to Samaya being a part of father's household. She hails from the Akabun family, a very prominent family from the country of Morocco. I don't know if I said that right. So, Akabun. For the initial period of her being a new member of the family, we got along well, and she was quite fun. But soon, she would start to discipline me in a harsh way that I wasn't used to. I felt that because she wasn't my real parent, she had no right to discipline me in such a way, and so I rebelled. That's where the first conflicts arose. There would be many more to come in years later. Along with the addition of Sumaya, I had 2 new nannies. The first nanny was a French woman named Celine, though she was only with us for a brief period, so I don't remember much of her. My second nanny was a German one named Christine. Christine would stay with us for a year, and I became very fond of her. She would always look after me during my time at father's house, and whenever I went on my adventures into the hills, she always accompanied me. Halloween this year marked my first time going trick-or-treating. My mother took me to my friend Shane's house, and we walked through his neighborhood collecting candy. Still obsessed with dinosaurs, I dressed up as a dinosaur for that Halloween. Trick-or-treating was a new thing for me, as it wasn't so popular in England. When it was all over, I was amazed that I had so much candy. Even though James Ellis no longer went to Topanga Elementary, he was still my best friend, and I saw him a lot. Mother would take us to his house in the Palisades almost every week, where I would play with James and Georgia would play with James's big sister, Sage. He got me interested in new phenomena that gripped many children of the era. Pokemon. When I got my first Game Boy console, I started playing Pokemon Red version and I was hooked instantly. Then I started collecting Pokemon cards, and James and I always compared and traded them. The Pokemon anime cartoon became my new favorite show on television. It was very fun, captivating hobby, and every boy at my school had a folder of Pokemon cards. It proved something to have, something to show off, something to talk about. The best cards were the shinies, and everyone coveted them. I also was a big Pokemon person. So my married friend, really? I don't think Elliot's dad knew how to budget money, lived beyond their means. Yeah, 2 nannies. My first response to Elliot's sentence that men respect men that get women easily. Hmm. Mother was still friends with George Lucas, so we got invites to the red carpet premiere of Star Wars Episode 1. I always was and will be a huge Star Wars fan. I already had seen the original trilogy many times, and I considered myself very lucky to be able to go to the premiere of the new Star Wars movies. It was an absolutely astonishing experience. It was just me and my mother. Georgia was too young, so she stayed home with the babysitter. Episode 1 is infamous for being the lesser movie of the 3 new prequels. As a kid, I enjoyed it very much. Afterward, I met some of the actors and I shook the hand of Jake Lloyd, the actor who played Anakin Skywalker in the movie. My second grade year flew by like a breeze. I don't remember much of it, but I did have a blast. During recess and lunch, I played a lot with Shane and Tommy. We would play Pokemon on our Game Boys, and sometimes we would have play dates where we played Nintendo 64 games such as Banjo Kazooie, Super Mario 64, and Donkey Kong. Ugh, I liked a lot of the same things that Elliot did too. Those like Nintendo 64, Pokemon, these are the same games I played. I failed my goal of never having to change my card, which really disappointed me. I went through most of the year without changing my card, but right when the year was about to end, I was caught talking in class with a friend named Danny Dayani who sat next to me, and I had to change my card to yellow. I blamed Danny for it because he was always talking in class, but I still had to change my card. And after a fantastic year, fast and fantastic year, summer came quickly and it was my 8th birthday. My 8th birthday was mellow but pleasant. I remember my mother inviting a few of my friends from second grade class and we all had cake. During my weekend at my father's house, we all went to the restaurant Typhoon in Santa Monica to celebrate it. It was quite a fancy restaurant next to a small airport and they had a lot of exotic dishes that I tried. Um okay, let me see. So we are now when he's 8 years old. I'll read one more section and then we'll move on to the next slide. But I will schedule the part 2 of reading the manifesto for tomorrow. I think dad was a dog too. His dad, Elliot's? Yeah, I don't get good vibes. I don't know why. I miss Pokemon, was a bit older. Oh, okay. That sucks. Okay, 8 years old. As I was now 8 years old, father decided that I was old enough to climb Big Rock. Whenever I was at father's house, I would always see Big Rock looming in the distance, and I was just itching to climb it. I had already conquered every other rock in the area. There was only Big Rock left, and I set out with father and a few of father's friends to finally climb to the top. The furthest I had climbed on this rock was about halfway up with Christine. There was a very steep rise, which I wasn't able to ascend without some help. The second half of the journey was quite a challenge, but it was so exhilarating. I was very nervous the higher we climbed. The best part, of course, was reaching the top and the sense of accomplishment I felt. I finally did it. Looking down, I could see the vastness of the old Topanga Canyon region, and my father's house looked tiny down there. I was too scared to venture close to the edge, and I felt a sense of dread at this prospect of falling from such a height. The way down was even more challenging, but I felt so proud of myself for climbing that rock that it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. I was very excited to start third grade. As third graders, we know we got to play in the upper playground of Topanga Elementary, and I considered myself one of the quote unquote big kids. The upper was vast with a bigger playground, more handball courts, and 4 basketball courts. My classroom was located in the bungalow adjacent to the upper, and my teacher was named Miss Bunton. She was a young teacher. I believe she was in her late 20s. Being used to having very old teachers, I was surprised at how young my new teacher appeared. I continued to play with the same friends during recess and lunch, where we would spend our time comparing and trading Pokemon cards. In the midst of elementary school, I didn't interact with girls much, but this was normal. I was at that period of life where the boys played with the boys and the girls played with the girls, completely separate from each other. Girls were the last thing on my mind. Maddie was still the only friend I had who was a girl, and I only saw her on occasions when our families would have a get together, which became more and more rare after Maddie's parents divorced and Paul Humphreys moved back to England. It was as if the girls in elementary school were a separate reality. Despite not having much interactions with them, they treated me cordially as they treated all the other boys of my age. This was fair, and I was content with this. I hadn't gone through puberty yet, and so I had no desire for female validation. My 8-year-old self had no linking of the pain and misery girls would cause me once puberty would inevitably arrive and my sexual desires for girls would develop, sexual desires that would be mercilessly spurned. Some of the boys in my class would grow up to be embraced by girls, while I would grow up to be rejected by them. But at that moment in time, we were just innocent children growing up together. All the innocence is destined to be shattered and replaced with bitter brutality. I was living in an ignorant, innocent bliss, and I was happy about it. Insane. Ooh, don't even tell me about pogs. I have to find my pogs that you mentioned that. This period of my life, aside from my early childhood in England, was one of the best periods. Life was fair and life was satisfying. As kids, proving our self worth and gaining validation among our peers was achieved in a fair manner. By how good we were at the games we played or how big our collection of Pokemon cards were, no one had unfair advantages. This was perfect, and this is how life should be. And boy, did I have a lot of fun. James' family had to move to yet another house in the Palisades, and Mother would always take us there. She became great friends with James' parents, Kim and Artie. James and I would battle our Game Boys, trade Pokemon cards, and walk to the recreation center down the street to play in the pool. And then for dinner, we would all go to the restaurant Mott's in the center of the Palisades. I was quite proud of my collection of Pokemon cards. I had gained a few shinies over the last few months, and I enjoyed showing them off to other boys. Shiny cards came randomly in card packets our parents would buy for us. The card that I coveted the most was a Charizard card. And one morning, when my mother opened a packet for me, I looked through the new cards, and there it was. I felt that it was the best day ever, and I was swelled with excitement. I jumped up and down all around the red house, and I couldn't wait to show it to James, who had already had a Charizard himself. Though being friends with James Ellis and going to his house a lot, we became acquainted with the Lemelson family, who were family friends of Kim and Artie. The Lemelson family is a very wealthy family who has been financially helping James' family for a while. Rob Lemelson is a son of Jerome, who is the inventor of the barcode, and his net worth is the 100 millions. Rob's son Noah is our age and great friends with James, and eventually I became friends with him too, though we would never be close friends. Sometimes we would all go to the Lemelson's house, also in the Palisades, and the three of us played together. Wait, the inventor of the barcode? What does he mean by that? Like, I'm trying to look at that. He was an inventor. I just keep seeing something about patents. From cutting edge medical industries to novelties, gadgets, and toys, undoubtedly one of the most versatile. Wait, like, okay, that's what I was thinking, like barcode, like stores? Whoa, that's crazy. Hey, Born Twice. Wow. The creators of the barcode scanner. Yeah. Asperger's is on the spectrum of autism. You guys know we've read some of the Koberger documents. We read that whole document, about autism. I feel like we might need to touch back on that. That's crazy. The inventor of the barcode. Rob's son, Noah. Okay, yeah. The three of us play together. For Halloween, we went to the Lemelsons for trick-or-treating, and from then on, it would become tradition to go trick-or-treating with them. I dressed up like a dinosaur again because I couldn't think of anything else to be. I wanted to dress up as Ash Ketchum from Pokemon, but no store had the costume in stock. The Palisades was full of wealthy families, so the candy they gave us would be in larger amounts, obviously. I remember competing with James and Noah as to who would get the most candy at the end. Afterwards, we would have dinner at Rob's house, and then we would dump our candy in piles on the floor to examine what we got. That was my favorite part. Early in my third grade year, my mother would often take us to a festival near Topanga Canyon Boulevard where small concerts were held and people barbecued great food. A friend of hers had something to do with these events, and I played with the son of this friend. He was named Riley Anapol, and he was 2 years younger than me, a first grader. I played with some other younger kids there as well, peers of Riley, and I had a good time. Riley became a common friend for a while. The significance of this is that Riley would eventually become someone I would harbor a great hatred for. Riley would grow up to get lots of girls, and I would grow up to be rejected by girls. But back then, he was a friend, a peer, and we were playing together as equals. It's funny how the world works. Yo. When the holidays arrived, my father announced that we were going to take a family vacation to Sumaya's home country of Morocco and meet her family there. And afterwards, we would stop by in England. I wasn't excited about Morocco since I didn't know much about it except that it was in North Africa. And I wasn't too excited about the fact that we'll be staying there for 6 weeks either, which meant my entire winter break would be spent in a foreign country that I knew nothing about. But of course, I had no choice in the matter, and Morocco was added to the list of many countries that I've been to at such a young age. I looked forward to visiting England afterwards and seeing family there. Morocco was very strange and foreign to me, even more so than Malaysia, which was more westernized. I found it to be very backwards, though it had a lot of culture and the people were friendly. I remember disliking a lot of the meals, but enjoying the desserts and pastries. Sumaya's parents were divorced, though they lived walking distance from each other in the 𝗏𝗲𝗏, a historic community located in the center of Tangier. Sumaya's mother, Khadija, has a small but elegant house, and her father, Absalem, has a very large, almost castle-like house that is famous for being a location where a scene from James Bond, The Living Daylights, was shot. This fascinated me as I was a huge James Bond fan at the time. In the center of this house, there was an open courtyard where I always played with a kid named Eamon and his two younger brothers. They were adopted by Sumaya's father a few years ago and live with him. After a long stay in Morocco, too long in my opinion, we made our stop in England to visit relatives. We stayed at Grandma Jinx's house, and I was able to play with my cousin George for a few days. On one of the days we stayed in England, my mother's sister, Auntie Antman, and my grandma, Amma, came to visit and brought me a lot of English chocolates, which I relished. All in all, it was a good trip, and I was able to experience it, although most of the length of the trip got cut into my school schedule, and I missed a couple weeks of school. That seems to be like a reoccurring pattern. Like him missing school. This guy is a victim, that's clear. Really, Wilson? Okay, Wilson thinks he's a victim. Hey, Jakey. It's the Elliot Rodger case. I did like James Bond too. After the holiday season, my nanny, Christine, had to leave back to Germany, and this saddened me deeply. Christine would always be my favorite nanny, and I was in a sullen mood on the day she left. The remainder of my third grade year went by quickly. I continued my Pokemon endeavors, increasing my card collection and progressing on the Game Boy game. I had a conflict with my friend Shane during this time because some arguments we previously had. I started to play a game with him in which he would become my enemy and rival at the school. For me, I was just playing with him, but he took it seriously, and the conflict escalated a lot more than I thought it would. Wow. We only got into small physical fights in which I hit him on the arm and was sent to the principal's office. That was the biggest trouble I've been in at 𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗃 Elementary. This little conflict with Shane lasted the rest of third grade, but we would later reconcile and play as friends again in fourth grade. He has been moved around. Yeah, moved around a bunch. Before summer came, my father's spontaneous career as a commercial director took off once again, and he became very successful. At this point, he was probably the most successful he's ever been. With all this success, he decided to move to a bigger and better house. After doing some searching, we moved to a house in the upscale area of the West Hills near Woodland Hills. I loved this house at first sight. It had 5 bedrooms, which was more than enough space for our family, along with Uncle Dan, who was still staying with us. It had a huge swimming pool with a spa, a large grass field to play in, a basketball court, and a nice view of the valley. I was a valley kid again. Despite father's move to a larger house and all the benefits that came with it, I still preferred my time at my mother's house, just because of her gentle and fun attitude and the energy of her household. My mother indulged in me more than my father and 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗆 ever did. She knew what I liked and what I didn't like, and she would go out of her way to make my life pleasant and enjoyable. I was quite annoyed with the recent decision between my mother and father to extend my stay at my father's by 2 days of the week. From that point on, me and my sister would only be at my mother's house from Monday to Thursday, and on Thursday night, we would go to father's house until the following Monday. My 9th birthday was spent at father's house, and father and 𝗠𝗲𝗹𝗆 threw a party for me. They invited a few of my friends from 𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗃 Elementary, though the only one friend I remember being there was Philip and his younger brother, Jeffrey. James was invited, but he wasn't able to make it. They also invited a few of Georgia's friends, which really annoyed me since it was my birthday and not Georgia's. It was quite an eventful party, and it took place in our backyard. My father hired a magician to perform tricks for everyone. And we're going to end there. I will pick up on the 9th year. So we'll continue to read this manifesto. It's very long, so it's probably going to be 2 parts. I'm hoping we did a lot of case background review before I read the manifesto. So I'm hoping that we could get through most of it in the next part, the next maybe 1 or 2 parts. We'll see. I also do have a lot of the videos, which maybe I'll make a separate live for that. And we do also have the journal entries and the investigative reports that I do want to go through. So like I said, I will continue my little obsession with this case. I just came up recently. I'm really into it, and I'm really into this manifesto, but we do have more lives planned for today, so I don't want to make this 700 hours. We're already going on to 3 hours. So shout out to you guys for being here. That's a really big word for a 3rd grader, to use solemn to describe his mood. He's describing like almost everything. Hey, Crack Pepperly. Okay, cool. You'll probably make it to the next live then. His only real friend was his mom up to this point. I think all the dysfunction with his family too had an effect on him. To clarify, victim mentality. Oh, okay. You think he's victim mentality. I got it. Thank you, Ramon. No rules at mom's. I know divorces can be hard. We are wrapped up in a lot of different, yeah, we are, Alicia. We are wrapped up in a lot of different things. Lots of true crime. We are going to be doing Nancy Guthrie review later tonight, but I do have a 𝗠𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃 live planned, so I do want to get to that. We have text message reading for 𝗠𝗲𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, so I'm going to schedule that right after this. I hope to see you guys over there. Please hit the like button. Let me know in the comments if you like going over this or not, or what you think about the case. Like I said, I'll schedule the manifesto live early for tomorrow, and we can do maybe a couple hours of that. I also can't wait to get to his diary entries. Very interesting documents, to say the least. But anyways, I'll have to rewatch. I have no idea what case this is. Yeah, this case is Elliot Rodger. He was a shooter at UCSB, and he unalived like 6 people. And so, yeah, rewatch Jakey so you get all the information that we went through. And like I said, I'll continue to play the videos as well on a different live. So I'll definitely schedule that. Thanks, Melanie, for this. Something different. I know. I was kind of in the mood for that. Thank you, Evie, for saying that. Yeah, I was like, we're being, you know, the media is really shoving 𝗏𝗃 down our throats to distract from Epstein files, but also because it's an important case. But sometimes I do need a break. And we'll continue Jody too. Trial day number 1, I think. Yeah, we're on. So that'll be probably tomorrow. And like I said, the reason I found this case last night was because I was doing Brian Koberger research. So we're going to continue that as well. Anyways, shout out to you guys for being here. Please, please, please. He had a diary too. Yes. And it's wild. So once we're done with the manifesto, I want to go through the diary, but it's just as long. So definitely will be fun reviewing that. Sometimes divorcing parents will overdo it to try to compensate, and then there becomes no rules. Yeah, I know. Thanks, Cree. Said I'm an excellent reader. It's a play day every day. He's confident in all the wrong ways, places and situations. He thinks because he's D&G, Armani, etc., girls should like him. He sees them as yeah, to expensive shit. So I'm wondering if maybe that's how his dad kind of is, or maybe like where would he learn that is what I'm saying. I never heard this diary stuff. Really? Have you guys gone through the investigative report? Like from the police department? I think we did that on recently we read a really long investigative report. It's really good. I almost think, well, I don't know how good the manifesto gets, but it's already really wild and interesting. But the diary entries are me neither. Okay, yay. I'm glad you guys hadn't heard of it. So we'll get to it quickly then. Probably another day and we might finish the manifesto. I could really sit through it and read it all. I think the longest document I've done was 150 pages and 1 live. So definitely doable. But we read quite a few today. So we're on the 9th year and I will schedule that live for tomorrow. Just manifesto reading. I'll separate them. Please hit that like button on your way out. I will schedule 𝗠𝗲𝗃 right after this for a text message reading, and then we'll go straight into Nancy. So I will see you guys on the next live. Shout out to you guys for being here for the entire live. I appreciate it.